Chihe Māori.
Tēnei tūring te kau mai nei ki hai mā rakaraka tūku nui o te ruru e rako. He po, he ao, kāwa te hei wā mauri ora. Tuatai ki te rukarawa nōna te timatanga nōna te whakamutika. Whainga ana hoki ana tāta katoa, me nā ki te aki wā katoa. Hiri au kia rātou koe po moi mai rā hoki mai. Kia rātou wei atu tēnei ki tēnei marama tēnei tau. Kia uta moi mai rā hoki mai. Tira ha whakatā rātou kia rātou, tātou kia tātou, nō reira a tēnā koutou katoa nei te mihi kia koutou nei te mihi atu kia koe councillor Makai mo te tuwhera nei, tēnei hui, tēnei rā, nō reira tēnā koe. Koutou katoa rau e ko mai tēnei hui, rema rau, hono te kaumawhitu, i tēnei rā nei anō te mihi kia koutou ngā manihiri nā mai. Nau mā hara mai i tēnei rā mo tēnei hui, pai ki kite i a koutou ki te mai ki te kōrero, kia koe, Liz, tēnā koe, pai ki kite a koe tēnei rā, rau ko Christine hoki ki runga e te rorihiko i tēnei rā, hara mai kōrua, ki te kōrero e pāna, e ngā te tauka o Takaroa, reira, tēnā koutou, huri noa, tēnā koutou, mauri ora ki a tātou katoa, kia ora.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mackay. And thank you, Councillor Cranwell. So welcome to the 567th Council meeting. I'm informed that there is a quorum, and I'm pleased to say that we can declare the meeting open. The two changes to the order of business, 4.1.3 will be taken before 4.1.2. There is a public excluded item under 5. Extraordinary and urgent business which will be taken after item 9.2.3 in public excluded. We have no apologies that I'm aware of, but we have Councillor Karakia and Councillor Adaptation online, and we also have been joined by David Hill, media online. So welcome to you and other staff online. We have John Thacker, who was going to do a presentation, as declared that he can't make this thing, so that's unfortunate. But we have two public forum sessions today, and the first of this, Liz, if you'd like to come to the table, is from Professor Emeritus Liz Slooten, speak on behalf of New Zealand Whale and Dolphin Trust in regard to their concern about the environmental damage being caused by the Istro Karina inside the Banks Peninsula Marine Mammal Sanctuary. Yes.
I just need to declare my interest in the Christine Rose, who will be speaking on the same committee as Christine Rose, Maui and Negus Dolphin Defenders, as I'm Deputy Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Robinson, for that. So there's a conflict of interest that's been declared by Councillor Robinson, and she will refrain from any questions. We will allow for the two deputations questions of clarity, but we will remind people that there's an investigation underway into this matter, and so we do not want to prejudice this and prejudice any possible prosecution. So in line with that, I'm going to ask, when we come to questions, Robin, if you'll come to the table up here and just guide us a bit through that. And the reason for that is I am not up to date 100% with where we are in that process. We need to make sure that we just keep everyone safe, and I'll talk to Liz about that. So, and she's pretty comfortable with that, so that's fine. All right, Liz, you've got 10 minutes, and so we'll give you a ding at 9, and then after that we'll go to the questioning, and then after that we'll do a recommendation to the council on deputation. Thank you. Oh, sorry, push the button, Liz.
Here we go, that's better. So the Hector's Dolphin research at Exponential is in its 40th summer now. And the video that's playing there was taken with a GoPro camera on a window washing stick, and the one at the top there was trying to play with a drone. So we've sort of moved into the 21st century with our equipment from very humble beginnings. Hector's dolphins are very slow breeders, which make them more vulnerable, and they have very small local populations. So around Banks Peninsula, it's not just that the dolphins stick around Banks Peninsula, but there are literally north side and south side Hector's dolphins. That's how local their populations are. And one of our PhD students who works for NIMA now, Tom Rowe, has looked at the hotspots around Banks Peninsula, which are very consistent. And of course, the dolphins move between those hotspots. There's quite a range of threats, of which fishing is by far the major one. And this new event just now of this boat running aground is an emerging threat, if you like, or a relatively rare one. When it comes to trawlers, the dolphins are actually attracted to them, so they follow the trawlers and feed around the net. So that makes the trawlers a little bit more tricky than the gill nets, which are also caught in, which they are not attracted to. They just blunder into them by accident. Here is the sequence. It goes top to bottom, first on the left and then on the right, of protected areas, with the light green showing where gillnets are banned and the dark green showing where both gillnets and trawlers are banned. And the one at the bottom right is a more ambitious target by the IUCN. So the IUCN, the people who do the list of endangered species, have recommended to New Zealand that protect their full habitat from both gillnets and trawling. So far, this has been one of the few studies that's shown an actual concrete quantitative improvement for the dolphin population following protection. So the Banks Peninsula Marine Mammal Sanctuary was already created a while ago, in 1988, and we can see that there's a much better chance of recovery after that sanctuary to 41%. So it's still not brilliant, like you'd like to see that over at the 80-90% chance of recovery, but a massive improvement compared to before. So we're kind of feedback loop. This is quite common around the world, where a protected area is created, the research shows it's too small, then it's increased in size, then the research shows it's still too small, and you go round and round, and you hope to come out here that the protected area is effective, problem solved, and you hope not to get a big red arrow down the bottom here saying game over, which is not likely for Hector's dolphin, but for Maui dolphin, their North Island subspecies that might be teetering on the edge of extinction there. So these protected areas will work if they're large enough, they effectively manage the key threats, etc. And if new threats are added. And so in this case, we have got a new threat being added. And we're about a third of the way to solving the fishing problem. So this is not a welcome time to be adding new threats. So I've just listed some of the main impacts here, and we can come back to that list later if you like in discussion. The Gulf of Mexico oil spill has provided a lot of information on the impact of oil spills on marine mammals. Now, this one, of course, is not oil but diesel and much smaller. But it's in an area that's very important for Hector's dolphins. So here are some of the health effects that they have identified with the Deep Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And to summarize, inhalation is very important. So the air and oil fume mix is heavier than clean air and sits near the water surface. And that, of course, is exactly where not only dolphins, but also the penguins are breathing. And so in the case of the Gulf of Mexico, most of the health effects were caused either directly or indirectly by inhaling these fumes. Christine, who will speak next online, she has a lot more to say on the management response, so I will soon hand over to her. but diesel is highly toxic, so compared to oil. So fish that come into direct contact can die. And I'm curious to find out more about, are people looking for dead fish? We will certainly be looking for dolphins with signs of disease. But in terms of the sort of prevention cleanup spectrum, obviously prevention is a lot better than cure. And one option would be to extend the trawler ban much further offshore to, for example, to the same boundary as the gillnet boundary. And obviously cleanup is a last resort. So the question is, management agencies, not just here, but in other parts of the country, actually prepared for this kind of cleanup and this kind of prevention job. I understand that all of the diesel is leaked out. There's not been possible to recover any of the diesel. And I'm assuming the same is true for the hydraulic oil and other pollutants that were on board. Interestingly, the 2019 Threat Management Plan actually identified Banks Peninsula as a high risk for oil spills, and they identified the north side as that high risk area because, of course, there's a lot of shipping traffic in and out of Lyttelton, some of which might cause spills. There are many local organisations who are interested in this issue, including the Whale Dolphin Trust and the organisation that Genevieve mentioned. And there are some international organisations as well. So some of you will know Sylvia Earle. She was one of my childhood heroes, famous marine explorer. And she has set up this organisation, Mission Blue, that has this series of hope spots around the world. And New Zealand coastal waters are one of those hope spots. So there's a lovely video online of Sophia urging New Zealand to better protect Hector's dolphins. So this is kind of where we are with Hector's and Maui dolphins. We're hoping that soon we'll have growing populations and eventually we'll end up with recovery to at least 50% of the original population size. That'll take some decades because they breed so slow. And so the oil spill, or rather the diesel spill, will set all this back a little, and that will mean that the other threats like fishing, direct impacts of fishing, will need to be managed in a more precautionary manner than what they are now. So at this point, I will hand over to Christine, and then maybe she has more to say about management responses to this disaster, and then maybe discussion, or maybe.
Look, I'm in your hands really with this. We set this up so it would be your deputation. We would finalise that and then move on, and then Christine could come in. Sorry, push a button.
I don't mind either way. You make a decision.
I think if it's okay with you, Christine, we might just give you your own space here and concentrate, because I understand that you're going to talk more about management, and we'll use this opportunity for councillors. I'll ask you to come forward, Robin, actually, to talk about, to ask questions of you as in terms of clarification. So questions of people. So councillors, Councillor Southworth.
Thanks for your deputation and the gorgeous dolphin photographs, which always are appreciated. In terms of population recovery that you showed, like, it looked to me like it's pretty much what we got to is where it's just replacement, like around about 1. So I presume what the IUCN are proposing would help to go beyond just replacement, which would improve the resilience of the population. So what's stopping that from being implemented, and who should be implementing it?
So originally the first sanctuary around Banks Peninsula was created by Helen Clark when she was the Minister of Conservation. Since then, all of the extensions have been put in place by the Minister of Fisheries, so Peter Hodgson, Jim Anderson and others. So these days it's MPI that make the decision on these kinds of fishing protections. But of course, councils are also relevant, and certainly when it comes to this kind of event that we've just seen, then that would be, I imagine, in your hands rather than MPI's.
Could you just elaborate on and I think this probably goes to the second question that I had, which is, so the threat management plan has identified Banks Peninsula specifically as having a high threat of oil spills. And I just wonder, what were there recommendations made both to reduce that risk in terms of the prevention and cure, but also you talked about tools to respond to the need to clean up or recover. So could you just elaborate a bit on that, please?
I wish I could answer that. I don't think the threat management plan made any specific recommendations on how to reduce that oil spill risk, but I will have a look and get back to you about that. And you're quite right about the replacement. So basically, the population was doing a nosedive at about 6% decline per year, and now it is almost stable, still not quite stable, let alone recovering. Yeah, so you're right about the IUCN recommendation is to allow for recovery.
Further questions from councillors? Thank you, Liz. In my chat with you before, you've come all the way from North and down to Peninsula to do this, and that's a big effort. So well done on that. And if we'll put the resolution here in terms of closing off this loop with you. So there's the resolution there. I won't read it, but let's need a motive, please. And Craig, thank you. So that's by Councillor Edge and seconded by Councillor Pauling. Any further discussion on that? There being no further discussion, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, that's carried. So thanks, Liz. You can step back now. All right. So Christine, so now we're introducing Christine Rose is joining us online and will speak on behalf of Maui and Hector Dolphin Defenders New Zealand Incorporated in regard to concern at the impacts of Hector's dolphins on the grounded fishing vessel, the Austro Carina at Shell Bay. They state this concern sits with the context of unsustainable dolphin deaths that from wider inshore fishing industry which he can and should address. Now, Christine, I just mentioned to Liz because she's here in person that we've got an issue around that in terms of the investigation process. So when we come to questions at the end of your time, I'll get Robin, our legal counsel, to sit up and not draft, but just give us a steer on those things if we have questions. So your time starts when you're ready, Christine.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today and to do so online. And apologies if my internet is a bit dodgy. And please signal to me if I lose signal or I'm coming through less than clearly. But thanks again. So I'm the chair of Maui and Hector's Dolphin Defenders. We're an incorporated society established in about 2012, but I've been a campaigner for Maui and Hector's Dolphins for the last 20 or 25 years. And that love of Hector's dolphins in particular was developed from encounters in Banks Peninsula with these beautiful little animals. And I hope that you've all had the opportunity to get kanohi kete kanohi with the dolphins as well, because lives are changed by that experience, and mine certainly was. I also have a background in local and regional politics, and so I was a regional councillor and deputy chair of the Auckland Regional Council, and a local councillor as well. So I have some respect for the work that you do and the challenges that you face. So I'm representing Maui and Hector's Dolphins today, partly because of the Austro Carina grounding, but because of widespread concerns about Hector's dolphins, and that we seem to have come to a dead end with government pathways to protect these dolphins. The Austro Carina grounding shows that indirect fishing impacts are a threat to the dolphins, as well as the more direct fishing related impacts from entrawlment entanglement in trawl nets. And at the same time, it's been shown from the Black Cat economic analysis that the dolphin industry is worth more than $24 million to the economy from just 7 operators alone. And a doc review of that economic analysis showed that that was an understatement, and that New Zealanders value the dolphins, and so there's the social value and the economic value, which is really significant. And threats to the dolphins are a threat to that economic value as well as the social value. The Austro-Carina grounding is relevant here because we have seen from the Rena shipwreck in the Bay of Plenty and the subsequent Motiti case, and also the Far North Regional Council policies and the Environment Court appeal that showed that regional councils have the power to enact fisheries-related controls in their regional plans, and in particular through the coastal plans. And so that means that ECAN has the power to do more than the government is to protect these vulnerable and really special little Hector's dolphins. The deaths of at least 19 Hector's dolphins as direct victims of entanglement, fishing-related entanglement in the last 5 years, but just the ones that have been reported show that there's a real need to do more. Unfortunately, government consultants think that it's okay to kill up to 50 Hector's dolphins in the South Island every year, but that's in addition to the thousands that have already been killed through indiscriminate fishing practices in the past. But we at Maui and Hector's Dolphin Defenders don't think it's appropriate to kill 50 Hector's dolphins a year through means that could be prevented. And New Zealanders don't find that acceptable. And the international community doesn't find that acceptable either. But you can do something about it. And today we're launching our petition calling on ECAN to review its regional plan to protect Hector's dolphins from fishing-related threats, both direct and indirect. And we note elsewhere in the agenda that the coastal plan review has been delayed, but that is the opportunity and a proven pathway for protecting these dolphins in your rohe, which you have a kaitiakitanga role to protect. So we have recommendations for you, and that they are that 1, you expedite the review of the regional plan coastal to protect Hector's dolphins from direct and indirect fishing pressures, and 2, number 1 is expedite the review of the regional plan coastal, and number 2 is to do this to protect Hector's dolphins from direct and indirect pressures from fishing. So that's it from me. Thanks for your audience, and I'm open to any questions.
Questions, Councillor Pauling.
Got it, and thank you, Liz, as well. Yeah, my question is really around just trying to understand, and I know I just mentioned it, but I thought you might cover it, the current Banks Peninsula Marine Mammal Sanctuary and the extension. What does that provide us? So at the moment, what's the restrictions in place? So I'm unclear.
Well, no wonder you're unclear, because they're really confusing and inconsistent, and they apply differently for set nets as opposed to trawlers. And that means that while some of the set net risks have been mitigated, but not completely, and certainly by no means make up for the damage that's been done in the past, the trawling restrictions mainly rely on voluntary and unproven methods. And so they include low headline height for the trawl net and slow trawl speeds. But there's no evidence from anywhere in the world that they're effective at mitigating the risks to Hector's dolphins. And that's why we're seeing in real time Hector's dolphins being killed in trawl nets. And the most recent one was at the end of September. So where there have been protections additional through the previous threat management plan, that has displaced fishing pressure out elsewhere within the region and within the country. And so they're at more risk, not less, from the protections that have occurred.
Thank you, Christine. So what would be sort of the recommended restriction that you want to see?
Our recommendations are consistent with the advice from experts such as Liz, but also the IWC and the IUCN. and that is that trawling and set netting should be both banned within the entire Hector's dolphins range. And so that's generally out to about 20 nautical miles or 100-metre depth contour. There are dolphins found outside that, but the general range that would protect most of the dolphins is within that area. And it's not that we're opposed to fishing, we just say that indiscriminate fishing methods which are proven to kill these dolphins should be pushed out beyond their range. And there should also be support for non-indiscriminate methods such as long lining, which do have problems for other marine animals, but definitely trawling and set netting are the threats to Hector's dolphins at the moment. And there is no place in the modern world for these indiscriminate practices to happen within this vulnerable dolphins territory.
Sure, thank you both. Very sad, actually. I just want to clarify, you said there were 50 preventable deaths. Is that the 4 Hector's dolphins alone per year?
Yeah, as part of the MPI fishing related mortality limits system, they find it acceptable for 50 Hector's dolphins to be killed just in the South Island every year before that triggers other management initiatives. So, you know, given that Hector's dolphins are not this homogeneous grouping, they are made up of small discrete subpopulations with little mixing between them. And so deaths within those small populations can have really profound impacts on those local populations, which are genetically and geographically distinct. And so it's trickery with science, and it's just not acceptable.
Got it.
Thanks, Christine, for your discussion. Is it in terms of the coastal plan review? I'm just wondering, are there techniques or mechanisms through our regional policy statement, which we're currently consulting on, that could also be strengthened or could help to move towards protection, since that is something we're currently consulting on? What opportunities do we have for that, if any, in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. The Motiti case and the Environment Court decision on the Far North Regional Plan proves that this is a viable, credible and legitimate pathway for protecting the marine environment from fishing industry impacts. And I would recommend that to you because the process is already underway.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Christine. Very forthright on that deputation. So if we'll just no more questions, we'll put a recommendation up on the screen there and read that. Thank you, Robin, for setting up. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Southwest, seconded by Councillor Pauling. Is there any further discussion on that? Being none, all those in favour, please say aye. All those against, carried. So thank you for your time and thank you for the ability, and thank councillors for the questions. Actually, we're concerned about that, but you've been really great. So thank you for spending with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. Councillors will go to which deputations and petitions, and there are no requests for deputations and petitions. So we'll go to 5, which is extraordinary and urgent business. There is an item of extraordinary and urgent business under 9.2.4, update cruise ship visitation to Littleton, public excluded. Under section 7 to B, very prejudice the commercial position, and C, subject to an obligation of confidence. And that is why that is in public excluded. Having said that, after the discussion we have in public excluded, we can bring that into the open meeting so that there's some visibility around that discussion, because that's topical at the moment. I think that we need some, my opinion is that we need some clarity on that, but we'll look at what we can do around that. So thank you. 6, notice of motion. There are no notices of motion, so we'll go to 7.1. 7.1, which is the unconfirmed council minutes on the 21st. The 20th September 2023. Are there any corrections? Which needs to be amended, Councillor Edge.
So I'm just looking at page 10, item 8.1. The second line there ends in a councillor did not like the process taken by Audit New Zealand. I'm just wondering if that should be changed to questioned the process.
So happy to amend that if we need to. Any other opinion on that? So it's the same thing. Can we just all deal with this? So let's amend that. So your suggestion, Councillor Edge, is to change. It just shouldn't. Yeah. Councillor.
Yeah, just one on the 8.7 report from the chair. The minutes are really like this is received report. Now we have in the agenda some of the items that will be flagged in that report, but then there's also people's as well, which is missing then in the sort of like I'm just wondering whether we should think about capturing some of the other topics that get raised within the minutes so that there is that clarity.
I think we should actually make sure that the councillors, when they make a comment, if they need them noted, that we put a hand up to do that. I'm not very good at actually doing that, so I think I need to be reminded constantly almost what that. Any other issues? So amendment is there. Councillor Burns.
Could I just add 4.1.1 the minutes? On there that Mr. King was asked to leave. He did refuse initially, but he did leave of his own will, like fairly after being with some discussion.
You're trying to make this.
Excuse me. It's kind of following up with what Councillor Southwood said, because lots of stuff that we have in here hardly ever has notes or comments or whatever, unless it's been picked out and noted by a councillor. In this one here, I think it needs to note, if someone picks this up, yeah, potato. I think it paints a poorer picture than actually happened on the day. That's my opinion.
Well, just to inform you, Councillor Burns, on why this is written that way, is that when I took the action that I did on that day, that was the end of that discussion. There was nothing else recorded after that. I asked councillors to leave the chamber, so there was no further discussion. So that was essentially the end of that issue. I mean, I know it looks strange and it sounds strange, but we cannot actually write in the minutes after the fact if we're not meeting. So that's why that's like that. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Karakia, you have your hand up.
Kia ora. Yeah, I was just trying to get some clarification on what Councillor Burns was saying. So, listening to the discussion, what you contributed to it, I'm fine now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We've concluded that discussion, so thank you, Councillor Southworth.
Yeah, just in terms of accuracy, I wonder if it should say rather than it was felt that he became disrespectful, whether it should be some councillors felt, because I don't think there was a uniformity in the room on that opinion.
Yeah, and I know you're not going to like what I'm to say to you, but that was my decision. And look, and again, Councillor Southworth, and we need to talk about this again, but our standing orders are very clear on this. The action that I took and the subsequent outcome from that was my decision as the chairman. We did not enter into a discussion around the table about what and what wasn't around that issue. And I think that I was reasonably clear on that. Do we need to have a discussion about this and how we handle this in the future when we review standing orders? Possibly, but that's why it is as it is. So some people won't be happy about that, but that's why it is what it is. And can we just then put a line under that and move to the unconfirmed council minutes, which have that change in it? So moved by Councillor Mackay, seconded by Councillor Edge. Any discussion? There being no discussion, I'll put that to you. Moved by Kai, seconded by Councillor Edge. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, carried. So we'll move to 8.1, which is Council Resolution Status Report from October 23. It's 23 of agenda. Betrayer is here to introduce this report. Table, but she will. Stay here. Fine.
So there is one thing just to note on page 25. We've got 8.6 risk framework. The item 2, the public excluded report is coming to AFRC, not to council, so that's going to report to AFRC.
I think Grant.
Yeah, I confirm that and for our meeting on November the 1st.
Further clarity required on the status report. Put that resolution up there.
I'd like to move amendment. I just emailed it through to governance, you and CC and councillors. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just get a look at that, get it up on board. Amendment to the resolution.
Take an adjournment while we have a look.
Yeah, Joe, we might just need to clock out for a couple of minutes on this. So yeah, we'll take an adjournment. Thank you. Okay, for that clarity, Joe.
So just my amendment. So that will be up on the screen soon, and then I'll speak to it.
Jenny will speak to the explanation around why. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we'll put this up, Joe, and then we'll get you to talk to it. And then so you're going to move this, and then we'll need a seconder. It will go to you when we need a seconder after Joe's explanation. And then we can have some discussion on this and see if this moves forward. So thank you, Joe.
Yes, this amendment is just relevant to the resolution 8.5 at the bottom of page 25 with regard to the Urban Waterways and Estuaries Joint Working Group. So this amendment is a technical point in order to fulfil, or at least partially fulfil, the Council resolution from September 2022 to refer the 8.5 Chair's report to this Council for consideration as part of the establishment of governance arrangements for the term. So now that it's been referred to us by and this request will have it again for staff to formalise it to bring it into the public arena, we can read the report in our own time, we can consider the governance arrangements, and once completed this step, the resolution will be complete.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davis. Do we have a seconder for this? So it's moved by, this has been moved by Councillor Davis and seconded by Councillor Burns. Okay, now we've got that moving a seconder. Can we have some discussion around, is discussion required around this?
I may be a bit dumb, but I don't actually know what's going on. Where's it come from? I've missed something here. Yeah, it's come from a bit.
Yeah, so September 22, so Chair Jenny Huey and Deputy Andrew Turner last term set up this working group to look at our urban waterways and Christchurch territory and estuaries. Another lens of a working group of governance over this area of policy. In September 22, Jenny Huey wanted this to come to this council for us to consider it moving forward, and so council resolved to bring the report to this new council. This amendment is an attempt to do that. So what I've circulated by email and what is going to be circulated again by governance is that report and the terms of reference of the working group. And so then we can consider, some of us might like to be involved with it, if we want to pick it back up, the possibility is there.
Yes, now I kind of get the context, but I don't understand. Is this going to? And I suppose probably ask the staff. Maybe is this going to actually achieve the outcome that Councillor Davies is asking by doing this?
Obviously, Councillor Davies believes that will, or he would not have brought it to amendment in the resolution status report. So I think that needs to stand on its own 2 feet. We've had formal discussions around that group and its effectiveness and those sorts of things, and we've had discussions earlier in this time with staff about this. I think this needs some light on it. From my personal opinion, needs some light on it, and this will do that.
Just to say that I was on the working group last term as well. I think there was some councillors around the table that were as well. I found it useful, but more importantly, I know that there were staff and councillors from City Council also found it useful, and it is a space where there is, it's important to be collaborating, and I think it's important that governments have got oversight of the opportunities to work collaboratively, not least to make sure that the funding streams are there in both councils to enable us to make best progress. So I do think it was useful, and it'd be good to see something set up, even if it's not precisely as it was, to if opportunities to coordinate, collaborate, enable staff to communicate with the councillors on both sides. So I'd like to see how we can make that happen with our colleagues over at CCC as well.
Yeah, I guess the point that we made earlier on was the fact that we did all the heavy lifting and they were urban waterways. And so, what's the responsibility of the Christchurch City Council to actually lead this piece of work? No doubt at all that councillors are interested in it. Our Christchurch City councillors are interested in it. But in terms of this, where does the funding come from? What's the long term? Where's all that stuff? And we need to go and figure that stuff out. Councillor Southwood.
Just to say, we did have a report come back on the responsibilities we can with respect to urban rivers as well, and so we do definitely have a role there. And then so maybe that report being looked at and perhaps recirculated would be helpful to give the whole picture and understand where we all have our part.
Yeah, look, I'm ambivalent really around amendment, but I guess for me it sets up a precedent of when you've got changing councils and decisions and papers and advice going from one term of council to another. I think for me, I would have just liked an update on where this was at, given that I understand staff have been having conversations. So not sure whether that's something that we can say.
I think it's fair. Do I have the same passion that Chair Huey had towards this? No, not, because I come from South Canterbury, but that is something that she and the former Mayor of Christchurch, Leanne, were quite passionate about, and we saw some use in it. So, need to consider it. So, look, I won't any further discussion about that. I think we'll just put that motion to councillors, request that report 8.5 Chair's report, Urban Waterways Estuary Joint Working Group from the council meeting on 22nd of September 2022 be circulated to the members. All those in favour of that happening, please say aye. All those against? That's carried. Now that becomes part of the substantive agenda item 8.1, moved by Councillor Pauling, the substantive item, seconded by Councillor. Sorry, I thought you were moving it. Let's back it up then. Go for your question.
It's in relation to the matters on this. So I noticed that the JJ Smith deputation from last meeting is noted there in the actions. Can we have an update about what the next step for that is? Because I haven't seen a copy of the response. But yeah, what does it say? The request was pretty fair. Just interested in what we're doing about that in the work program sense, or can we get an update to a next meeting or a committee meeting? Yeah.
We'll note that, Petey. We'll note that.
Just seeking clarification on that item there on page 25, 6.5. Presume that staff will come to, this is to do with the standing orders review. I presume staff will come to us sometime in November to and so we have a good discussion about proposed changes before December.
I think that is going to happen. The reason why it is where it is, and we keep shunting this in front of us a wee bit from when we started, and the LTP discussion should be, I'd say finalised, but should be pretty well submitted in terms of where we're headed with that, and turn out to work, because that's the most important piece of work we need to do, and then we can get on and that. And yeah. And just to your point, Craig, Steph just mentioned that she's more than happy to provide that advice back to you about the J.J. Smith piece of work. No, to us,
Yeah, but how it will happen? Is it demo or how? Just to be clear, so we know where we're going.
Through you, Chair. I will report back either through this resolutions update in the column, or I will do a verbal update depending on the nature of it.
Clarity around 8.3, which is page 28, regarding the judge of the regional council. It says it's in progress, but I'm just wondering what we're waiting for.
Progress. There's a piece of work we need to be doing in terms of a letter to those people and thanking them for their commitment. And I'm not too sure where we are with that, but I'll certainly get to you on that also. Okay, anything else? Okay, so we've now got a second motion, and that will be moved by Councillor Pauling and seconded by Councillor Davies. Those in favour, please say aye. All against, and that's carried. Thank you very much for that. Okay, which is the committee activities minutes, page 31. Dr. Trey is here to speak if we need to. Is it need to say on that, Trey? You're happy that we'll take that as read?
Let's take it as read.
So, Councillor Edge will speak on behalf of Audit, Finance and Risk, and also on behalf of Canterbury Regional Transport Committee that occurred in that time while I was on leave. So, Councillor Edge.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of things on the Finance and Risk Committee, page 35. Just between on item 2 down the bottom, the substantive motion. Item 3, the committee were some discussion on Canterbury's forestry and land use opportunities, and so at some stage soon, the council staff will come back to us with a bit of a briefing and discussion on that matter. And noted too at that last meeting, we did have we presented with the draft annual report. Of course, we've got it today as well. So significant, potentially subject to change, but I don't think there's anything significant in that. And then just to note, there was on page 37, 8.5. We were also presented with a tax governance framework, which highlighted a few things for us, and pay audit review.
Round AFRC minutes for Councillor Reid. If not, go on with RTC. Your button, right?
Canterbury Regional Transport Committee held, and unfortunately, not far into the meeting, it was that we didn't have a quorum to be able to carry on with most of the items. So the items that we couldn't deliver on will be incorporated into the next regional plan. Just really in terms of just changing page 47, I was the chair standing in for Chair Scott at that meeting, and the minutes also, there were a few councillors away, a few mayors away, and a few left during the meeting. But anyway, it was a good discussion on particularly the issue of the Canterbury item 8.3 really good robust discussion on that. The original recommendations were lost and we worked through another set. So that'll come through the next meeting.
Thank you for doing that, standing in for that. And it's just unfortunate the mayors do what mayors do sometimes, and that you weren't enough at the end of the day to actually get that work done. But thank you for doing that. Okay, let's move forward. So that recommendation is there that we know the unconfirmed minutes of both those committees. Going to move that, Grant. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Ward. Any discussion on that? If there's no discussion on that, all those in favour, please say aye. All those against, that's carried. Thank you. So, Jimin, oh, it could be you, Brian. Oh, Brian. No, Brian, so if you'd like to come forward, Brian, we could talk about the 8.3 adoption of the 22-23 annual report. Just going to cover that all.
Yeah, obviously this is the annual report which needs to be adopted before the statutory deadline of the 1st of October. Very quickly, some points from Yvonne, our auditor at Audit New Zealand. She notes that and they have issued an unmodified audit report, which means that the financial statements and statement of service performance present fairly the regional council's activities for the year. And she would like to thank the council and staff for being so helpful and attending to the queries throughout the audit. She further notes that the report to the council and management letter is still under review and may not be available for the November 1st AFRC, but she will be in contact by email on any substantive issues she wishes to raise. Any questions?
Thank you. I think the most important thing here, unqualified report. The report is what the report is. Unqualified means it's accurate to what extent it can be. Any questions, Grant?
No questions, really just a comment. When I've moved it. Oh, well, I'll make a comment now. I'll really just page 38, which gives a bit of a breakdown of where we are in terms of the variance, in terms of the surplus, and why it ended up in a comprehensive way to be in a negative, in a deficit. And it was due to the changes to the value of our indigenous trading scheme for our forestry, which was reduced in value by about $11 million. So that's unfortunate, but overall a pretty good result. And I want to thank Brian and your team for delivering this report and assisting Audit New Zealand to come up with a draft annual plan that was on time.
Like Government Act requirement is to have a balanced budget, and I think it's got close enough actually to say well done. So thank you for that. Any further discussion on this? Greg.
Kia ora, thank you. I've just got a couple of questions. Couple of kind of pedantic, but I'm just curious. And I think possibly through the resolution where the CE has hopefully the ability to be able to make minor changes that will mean we can do this without any sort of amendments. On page 57, it talks about 16 new electric buses added to our fleet. Can we change it from our to the fleet, because we don't own a fleet? Don't have a fleet. But again, it's a member of the public picks that up. There's a presumption then that perhaps we own it. Page 105. I'm just curious, again, item 13.1, which talks about the revitalised Canterbury biodiversity strategy, identifies regional priorities, etc. The target was to continue to revitalise, and the result was achieved in 22-23, which was setting up this stakeholder group. My question is, was that prior to the election in October, during the earlier part of the financial year? 5, item 13.1, it has a nice tick in there about revitalising the Canterbury biodiversity strategy. And it says in the result, I presume this is what has a tick, in 2021, the target to establish a partner and stakeholder group, this was achieved in 22-23. I came on as a councillor, first-term councillor in October, and I haven't heard anything of this since. I'm presuming this happened. I'm wanting clarification of that, thank you.
Are you done? Oh, there's an answer coming.
Hoping an answer.
Staff have been working on looking at what the revitalisation of the strategy will look like. The paper's been prepared for upcoming committee meetings. You'll see what progress was made, but yeah, it ticks the box, but not the substantial progress that you would like to see.
Kia ora, thank you. Can I have a supplementary? Just out of curiosity, who's actually on the stakeholder and partner group?
On that, right.
Kia ora.
Just with regards to level of service, 21.3, with regards to the marine biodiversity, biosecurity survey, the measured yet is still Kaikoura, and it says that it would be happening during the second half of this year. I'm just wondering, do we have an update on that, please? And if it's happened or attempts have been made, etc.
My understanding is that they've done that, but I'll check and let you know.
And for me, just a comment. So on page 71, and I see this annual report, the benefit of it in particular is to look back and then see what we might want to do next. And we've got our long-term plan conversations building, and we'll bring that next year. But the stands out to me as a concern. On page 71, we have that we're saying over 75% of the consents that were monitored were compliant. I'm assuming that's somewhere close to 75% rather than say 80%. And that means that 1 in 4 consents non-compliant, and that's a concern to me. So I know we'll have our eyes on that long-term plan, but just to replace, for me, that feels like something that really isn't good enough that's sitting here in our annual report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment?
Probably going to be the elephant in the room here, but with regards to managing the coastal environment again, page 114, just regards to the statement on the CGP, a major maritime event for the coastal environment. Just with regards to navigation for ships, commercial vessels and recreational boats, etc. The issue I have, and it may not fall into that or not, but I just wanted to put it out there with regards to the safety of those vessels and the people on those vessels, and with regards to it being a marine mammal protection area. In light of the SailGP investigation to the vessel, and they could not prove the 300-metre rule, couldn't determine it. And knowing that the SailGP event is taking place again, I just want to know, really, I don't know where I'm leading with it actually, but is there something that we can do with regards to that, with navigational safety at all?
That's a query that we can take outside of this discussion. This discussion is signing off on. No, we're more than happy to do that. Yep. And I keep poking us, which no doubt it will. Ian.
Thank you, Gavin. I just wanted to reiterate congratulations to our Chief Executive, Director of Finance, the team for delivering an unqualified annual report. That the complexities of this organisation, that's not always easy to do.
I just wanted to follow up on Greg's point. If that isn't correct, is that able to be changed? Yes, what I mean. Is it able to be changed for the minor amendments or something? Because I don't remember that happening either. I honestly don't remember the group being set up, but so yeah, it just does seem to be something that's not quite correct.
So if it's not substantive, the recommendation details the fact that that can be adjusted, but it will be under the discretion, I guess.
If it's substantive and material, it can be changed. If it is substantive, no, it cannot, and we would have to reconsider the process. My understanding is it is correct and it has been audited. So I think that stands. I will look at the wording of this. There is actually a full stop in between here in terms of the numbers and the years, and I think that's what's confusing us, but I will do that offline to ensure it's both accurate, the writing, but also accurate in the action.
Can we have comments? No, I just wish to go back to the comment that Councillor Southworth made around on page 71 around consents and monitoring. I actually think it's a pretty good news story there, because we've got 1,000 high priority consents with only 2.7% were found to be significantly non-compliant. I think that position which we have to do, if you look at the high priority consents, which are most likely to have the biggest environmental impacts, negative environmental impacts, I think to have 2.7% significantly non-compliant is actually something we probably should be celebrating.
Okay, we're not going to get into that, Brian. I think you can step back actually, and we can have a discussion about this. We'll put the amendment up here. The resolution up here. We'll get a mover in a second. Then you can have a discussion about it. Make some comment on it. One thing we need to recognise is that this is an audited report, unqualified. Areas that people are asking on, but the report actually stands pretty well on its own. So I think that's fair. I think we've had a fair discussion on it. So just those 1 to 4 there approves the annual report, delegates the Chief Executive Authority to make alterations of minor effect or corrections, any minor errors to the approved annual report. The annual report summary for the year ending 30th of June 2023, and receives the independent auditor's report of Environment Canterbury annual report and annual report summary for the year ended 30th of June 2023, adopts the audited annual report and annual summary for the year end 30th of June 2023. You want to move that and moved by Councillor Ed and seconded by Councillor Swiggs. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Swiggs.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question, but I don't really need to ask the question. It's just mainly around the emissions trading scheme. We've had a couple of comments that, we're in surplus, but if you look at comprehensive cash flow and things like that, there is a deficit mainly because of the assumptions in the ETS. And I just want to sound a little bit of caution on how we account for the cash flow in the near future. There are some notes made in the annual report that have the caution as well, but I just wanted to raise that because as we go into the long-term plan process, there are some assumptions made on how much cash flow there could be from the ETS, and we need to be careful about that. So, good news story in the way that we've had some operating surpluses, but we do have some issues around the comprehensive cash flow.
I think it's a solid comment. I remember discussions we had around the same issue back in 2016-17. Everything looks like it was going one way, but things do change. So that's really good. Mr. Robinson.
I just noted that the level of service 22. The target keeps changing, and I really am happy. how it's not met year upon year upon year, and just think, yeah, it's quite an important one, and we're always waiting for something. And I would really like to see some sort of interim measures brought in light of the conversation this morning and such. And yes, I am going to keep going.
Councillor Robbins. Councillor.
Sure. I just want to acknowledge too, they are a massive piece of work that goes through. So I certainly want to acknowledge all of the staff involved with putting it together. It's not an easy thing. I do recognise too that it's qualified. I think that's another bit. So just wanted to make that point.
Any further comment on this? If not, we'll do the resolution. One for seconded by Councillor Swiggs. All those in favour, please say aye. And all those against, please say nay. That's carried. Thank you very much for that. So 8.4, which is a council committee schedule for 2024. Petraeus here to talk to that if we require Petraeus to talk to that. It is a pretty straightforward piece of communication with you in terms of where we're going up until June 2024 with our meeting schedule. I would note that various councillors have interacted with governance on this in terms of trying to get things in the right order. This is pretty much as good as it gets for us. Obviously, things change through time, but I'd just like to thank the mayor and the government staff, and especially Catherine McMillan, who is here, who actually was a great person at putting pegs and holes on these sorts of things. So, thank you for that. It's a big piece of work. We've got it early, which is great. And just noting that from June 2024, there will be a change because of the change under TPIO, that we will move the core services delivery process. That will require some changes, I guess. Councillors and chairs what go about that. That process will get underway next year. Anybody got a question, Trey, in terms of accuracy around that? Any? You got a comment? Thank you, Councillor Burns.
Can I comment as well as question? The comment is, again, brilliant job. I mean, herding cats, it's fantastic. But does it take into account, this is kind of a throw in there, does it take into account that we'll be having a field trip, a multi-day field trip in March for biodiversity and biosecurity? Kia ora.
Look, it possibly doesn't, but it shouldn't stop us from doing that. My intention, I've said this, and we need to do this a number of times and for a number of reasons, for a number of purposes. It's a good idea to carry a committee meeting with us out of that day. So if it gets in the road of what we're trying to do, or we can shuffle things around to suit. But it's important that we get to know what our region looks like. Some of us don't, actually. Some of us spend a lot of time in areas, and some of us don't have an understanding of it.
Thanks, here, just acknowledging the work that's gone into this, but just to comment on it, somewhat ironical that the Catchment Resilience Committee only meets twice a year, and a very key and core part of our function. And yeah, a comment there. I just thought that significance of our catchment and the work that goes on, we only deal with it a couple of times a year.
I think we need to roll this to the fact that this is half of it. The next half's coming. The next half's coming in from that June period through, in terms of the rest of the year. So I said until the TPIO process is a lot visible, and we know how that's going, how the reporting is going to go, and how that stuff's going to go. This is what we're going to do. I would tend to think that you've got probably a lot of pay on your fork here, actually, in terms of Catchment Resilience Committee and the work you need to do, and we need to adjust around that.
Just wondering, is there any reason why the times that we kind of have recess times are always around the school holiday periods? Because it's the most expensive time to ever do anything.
Really good. There's a really good reason for that. A lot of people have got children in this building. 15 of, there's only 16 of us and there's 800 staff. I think we need to give them an opportunity here. We'll give you a break. Give you a break when the earpiece are cheaper and you can go away. Okay, it's a good point, but that's the only answer you're going to get. So. You can do anything you like. You can ask me anything you like, it's not going to happen. Okay, Councillor Campbell, and second by Councillor Robinson. Any further discussion around this? Noting, Councillor Swiggs, that we need to do something about your RNO. Can't do anything about here. So there we have it. Go through that. All those in favour of that, please know. All those against, that's carried. So 8.5, which is Bridget. Come forward, Bridget. So Bridget's going to talk to us about this submission on the emergency management bill. And again, this has been before us another time. So Bridget, thank you.
Kia ora koutou. The purpose of this report is to seek your approval for the draft Canterbury Regional Council submission on the emergency management bill. This bill was introduced earlier in the year, and it would replace the 2002 Civil Defence Emergency Management Bill. We've drafted this submission in the context of our role as the administrating authority for the Canterbury Civil Defence Emergency Management Group, and our statutory responsibilities, including as a provider of flood protection infrastructure. And it also builds on comments we've made during previous consultations. I do just want to highlight one of the comments in the submission that we have picked up has a mistake in paragraph 12. I'd like you to note that it has makes it about how we fund through the joint committee. We have that the costs come via a uniform by rating unit. This is actually incorrect, and as per the recommendation too, would like to seek your approval to delegate to the Chief Executive to make an amendment to this, because it's in fact we actually fund that through a uniform annual charge that is targeted to exclude Waitaki, so that is actually incorrect. Aside from that, I'll take the report and the submission as read and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure that that's under the guidance a change, so I can't see. I personally can't see an issue with that. Any discussion or any questions about this submission? John?
Just thank you. Quite happy with it. So I just asked the question: who has involved in putting the submission together? What volunteers or both have been engaged in the bringing it together?
Yes, we worked really closely with CDM Group and also working with the Canterbury Mayoral Forum, and they're doing a joint submission. We have decided to do our own submission, but we've been working closely with them as well to make sure that our submissions are consistent. So they've had eyes on it, and obviously working close internally, particularly with our RIS team, because we advocate pretty strongly in the submission to have rivers recognised as critical infrastructure under the new bill, and also working with our 2E team, because as you'll note in paragraphs in the first half of submission, there's an increasing role for representation of Māori, so we need to make sure that we were have that well covered off. Our views were aligned with our relationship with Ngāta.
Thank you for that. I just sort of visibility and clarity to the breadth of conversation. Thank you.
Grant.
Just comments really. I think the report of the submission is really good. I've been noting on page 3, item 3 here, that we think that should be qualified as critical infrastructure. for what it does. So, you know, we made that point, and I think that's good we've done that. I also, on page 5, item 13, make the point in a couple of about additional funding resourcing required to actually deliver on this, and it's really, really important, especially if on item 15 there, the funding implications of changes to the role and responsibilities of the Emergency Management Committee. I think too, and page 6, clause 22. Again, let's talk about funding. I probably would, if I was going to change a word, it would be in line in 22. It says independencies need to be better recognised. I'd interchange that with must in my way, but I mean need is probably fine in terms of our submission. But being really forthright in our concern about the implications of that for us. And 23, just finally, there the investment in protection assets that contribute wider system resilience. So it kind of it's not just about building stock banks, but it's what's the wider implications for that. But sorry, lastly, 25, we refer to the potential for liability. And that obviously that's something that's on the horizon we need to continually think about. But yeah, otherwise I think that's good.
Any other comment regarding this? Thank you, Brent. We'll put the recommendation. But Steve, yeah, voted and seconded over here. So, Councillor Sanko and seconded by Councillor Ward. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Bridget, it's good work done, and I'm glad to see the river stuff in there as a critical infrastructure. With it. Okay, it's the item 8.5. No, we do. Councillor Sanko and seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour? Sorry, any further discussion? All those in favour say aye. All those. That's carried. Thank you very much for that. So we're going to 8.6. Jeremy, if you have come to the table, this is about the public transport business services and improvement to reduce. Sorry, just going to introduce this report, Jeremy.
Koto. So I'll take the report as read to touch on some of the key points. So in August this year, government made some changes to the Land Transport Management Act, where they implemented the Sustainable Public Transport Framework, which replaces what was the PTOM, the Public Transport Operating Model. That there was a process that went through with industry, with councils, to which ECAN contributed and presented our view on it, and our feedback was and we gave feedback on some key elements, on-demand public transport being part of unscheduled services being part of public transport. And that was important to us, both in Timaru and with respect to where we might want to go with our network, and also around the opportunity to control, own, or lease, term lease, or seek transfer of ownership for our asset, for strategic public transport assets, shall I say? And that's and so did all the other regional councils have similar feedback across the country. So one of the key so our feedback has been good, I suppose, and the legislation allows public transport authorities to have an interest in public transport service, which enables us to own or lease public transport assets and to receive the funding assistance from from central government, 51% fair, and it also enables us to it brings on-demand or unscheduled services are able to become public transport, classified as public transport, and also to receive that 51% federal funding share. This paper requires two things. The on-demand public transport, we know that we've got a very successful service running in Timaru, well patronised, it's making a difference to the community, and we're seeking council approval to engage with Kotahi to make that a permanent service, to get the 51% funding permanent out of the National Land Transport Fund, and following that we would go through the process of the procurement process to establish long-term contracts. We would explore potentially asset control, but also the electrification or the making that fleet zero emission. And we're also seeking council approval to understand the benefit of owning strategic assets. For council, to control strategic assets, not necessarily to own. So it might be to own, it may be to have a long lease on, it may have transfer of ownership at the end of our contract term. But ultimately, with the value of the value being that we believe there may be a fiscal or economic benefit to council if we were to do that. And we're seeking approval to develop a business case and to spend up to $500,000 on that business case over the next 2 years to enable us to make an informed decision as to the value or not of strategic ownership of public transport assets.
Jeremy, just questions of clarification on this to Jeremy in terms of people's understanding of this. I know that we need to have some discussion around this. This is important for us to do that. But here's an opportunity to talk to Jeremy before the resolution and get a move and second, then talk to that. Anybody need clarification? This is pretty straightforward, actually. I think the detailed conversation for councillors will be around, hey, so what does the 500 look like and what does it involve and those sorts of things. But just my question there for Jeremy in terms of clarification. The $500,000 looks to encompass all those assets that are required to run public transport in the Greater Christchurch Partnership.
So strategic assets. So when we talk about strategic assets, we're talking about depots, charging infrastructure, and possibly vehicles. But we need to understand the value of owning each or any of those strategic assets. So you get Christchurch, but also that will be able to be applied to South Canterbury as well.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's really just around the transparency. Well, more just explaining it in this forum. So can you explain to us the current system as it is at the moment and all of the inefficiencies it has around the sort of ownership of the buses and all that kind of stuff, and the opportunity that potentially persists under the new legislation in terms of the efficiencies that we can gain? What I'm trying to understand is that there's a whole lot of inefficiencies in the current system in terms of delivery, and then the potential opportunity in the new one.
So yes. So potential efficiencies, because we need to do our due diligence, which is that's what the business case will do. We'll set up the economic case. There are a couple of layers to that. One of the layers is from a day-to-day operational perspective. We have contracts with operators to deliver our services, and operators have shareholders, and they deliver return on investment to those shareholders, and they layer return on investment across all of their expenditure. And so there's a layer of any asset that is owned by an operator. There's a return on investment layer over that, which is X percentage of dollars, and X percentage of the contract price, and reflecting that out, we pay over $60 million on our PT contract. So 1% is $600,000, and that's increasing. So 1% is over $600,000 per annum. So there's a layer of profit margin on that, and which is reasonable, and all businesses do that. So there might be an opportunity for us to, if we were to control it, there would be an opportunity. There's that profit margin also includes risk. It includes the time to depreciate the vehicle, which over our public transport contracts, which are 9 years, whereas an asset life cycle for vehicles are 15 to 20 years. So depending on how, this depends on how each of the operators actually structure their business and their economic models. But we see there's value to depreciating these vehicles over the actual real life of the asset, and where we'd have either a long-term lease or ownership, or the ability to transfer ownership, and that would enable us to depreciate over a longer life, and therefore to reduce the contract price to us. There's also from a depot perspective, operators have different depot structures, some own and some lease, and particularly so there's a margin or return on capital to that investment. So, and where an operator leases a depot, the landlord's making a margin on the depot, and then also the operator who's paying we're making a margin on that as well. And the other, so this is all now cost, and the other area is there's a lot of investment going into electrification of depots at the moment. And again, once that money is invested in a depot, or sorry, that infrastructure is invested in a depot, the money is sunk in the depot essentially. And again, operators are rightly looking to achieve return on investment over the contract life, or the life that they have before. So if we were able to have a long-term lease or control, it might be ownership, it might be a transfer of lease or transfer of ownership at time of tender, and that provides the opportunity for that investment to be sort of levelled out and for us to pay less for that. And the other significant area for us in the control regard is there is limited appropriate land within Greater Christchurch where depots can efficiently be run to enable public transport, to enable a public transport network. And over time, as has happened in Wellington, as has happened in Auckland, land is disappearing. And these are strategic assets that enable us to run as an efficient public transport network as possible, because we want the buses to be as close as possible to the start or end points of the route, so it's as efficient as possible. We also, when we want them to be as close as possible to appropriate levels of electricity infrastructure, so that it's cost effective as possible. And so once that land is kept to the operator, it provides a significant competitive advantage to the operator, which then which makes it harder for new entrants to enter into the market, and for us to get potentially better value for money in the procurement exercise. And also it means that the other thing is that land may actually just cease to exist, may disappear, and so we may, worst case scenario, end up with depots in very inappropriate places on our network.
Thanks for answer. Okay, Jeremy, I think just open up to discussion with councillors. You can step back. We're not going to put you on any more things, but this is pretty strategic for us. I mean, I've made the point before that this is our stuff. With most of this missing here is ours, is about delivery. Structure is something that we don't know about. We don't know where the synergies are. We don't know where the margins are, and I think very well covered that, Jeremy. We need to. It seems like a lot of money to go and have a look. $500,000 will give us a look at that and what that looks like. We don't know politically. We don't know what GPS will look like. We don't know if there's a walk back in terms of this model. There's a lot of stuff going on in terms of this next 3 to 4 weeks to give us some sort of sense of this. But I think this is the right thing for us to be doing. So we'll put this. Do you mind if where were you? The question of Jeremy. It would be nice to put your hand up when I said we were going to push back. Really nice, because I'm getting well ahead of myself here. What was that? Go, Craig.
You're a nice speech, Peter, so I don't want to disturb you. Jeremy, I just looking through this, it's in clause 10 there in the paper, the sort of things that the business case will look at. I'm interested in whether the business case will, and I'm assuming it might be in the words potential implementation pathways, but are we looking at the actual entity that might be set up to implement this stuff?
So we look at it as part of the, so there's a management case, a business case, and that looks like how this actually be managed as an entity. So, but yes, is the answer. Is the short answer.
Yeah, interested in the process of developing the business case. So is that something we will be doing? And sorry, I couldn't figure it out in the paper, but will it be internal staff that are doing this, or is it something that will go through a sort of scoping exercise and go out to tender, or how is that 500,000 going to be? And that's a maximum, presumably, if we're going through external, there'll be some sort of method process to get value.
So yes, so there'll be a mixture of internal staff who have the subject matter expertise, but also external experts who have been involved in this across the country and Australasia. So there's various subject matter experts in that space that exist outside of the environment Canterbury, and so we'll go through we'll follow a procurement rule with the procurement policies to select anyone that assists us.
Hold it. Oh, just can we get the? I pulled it in too early for Jeremy. We just need to give us some time to people consider stuff. So I think there's 5 here. I don't know if we can get them all up once. People understand those from the paper. There they are there. So can someone possibly back Dion and a second one? All right. So it's been moved by Councillor Twig, seconded by Councillor Davies. So now we can. Yeah.
Thanks, Chairman. Whereas I support the 5 recommendations, I am concerned that as council we are being asked and consider investing capital expenditure into various components of our public transport network, whether it's depots or buses or this or that, without actually having a clear strategy of what it is we're trying to achieve. And it seems to me the business case for what we're proposing here needs to come out of a clear strategic direction, which hasn't been, I think it sits, but it hasn't been clearly enunciated by this council. And so I'm proposing an amendment to the second recommendation to include that link back to a strategic objective. And I circulated the council and senior directors involved with public transport just to signal it. But it worries me about that if we don't understand clearly exactly where what we're trying to achieve in terms of a model for how we operate public transport, and spending money on a business case without that clear strategic objective is probably a waste of time.
Thank you for that. This is a bit chicken and eggish. We need to make sure that we've got some money to go and look at something that can give us a business case. And I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that is item 6 as you think, as you articulated. Glasses on. So can we just take this as it is, or do you got a comment? You got an addition you can make to it? We need a mover and a seconder for this. Actually, moved by Councillor Mackenzie and seconded by Councillor Edge. Right, now, do we need discussion?
Is this replacing number 2, or is it the same contents of the start? Okay, thank you, Radio.
Yeah, just in the prelude to this amendment that's been emailed to us, I have slight concern around it transitioning to a more efficient commercial business model in the explanation. And I'm not against cost effectiveness, like that's important, but this isn't a commercial business, it's providing a public service among other things. And so I would be happy with something along the lines of a more cost effective and long-term sustainable business model, or a long-term public transport supply model. I would expect there to be, you know, broader sort of values and benefits in a cost analysis than simply what you might look at from a commercial business model. And so I would worry that this might constrain, or you know, maybe advice from staff that we're not constraining that broader, more holistic focus that I would expect to see for a public transport, public service delivery rather than a commercial business.
Hard edge to it, because why would we want to be wasting money, our ratepayers' money, on excuse me, why would we want to be doing that? So that's the point. I think that's the point. It needs to be the first look. We have also said, informally, not a public space, that we are the best ones to do the things that we said.
And I did make it clear, it's about being cost effective. That's not necessarily the same as looking at a commercial business and sort of outcomes. There's other nuances. So it's just making sure that so I don't disagree that we don't want to throw money at something for no benefit, but the benefit you get for the money spent may not be the sorts of things as a business commercial sense that you would prior to. That would be for me part of the business assessment, or this assessment would be looking at all those values that we would think.
And I'm going to split that here with you. That's that. I think that we're all on the same page here. I mean, if this thing doesn't, we go and have a look, this doesn't make sense. You know, put a hand up. We need to put a hand up, and we need staff advice that says put your hand up. Others? Yeah, Craig?
I'm quite happy to support the addition at the end, which sets out some clarity around the why we're doing it. We've heard staff give us a pretty good reason around the change of the funding model, and if we're going to invest money, I think we do need to make sure that it's wisely used. So happy to support that change.
Kia ora, Peter. Yeah, I like the idea that the strategy is a bit more linked to the resolution, and I like the words that are actually in. But it's a bit chicken and egg, like you said, Peter. It's in the paper in clause 5, and then in clause 9 and 10 in a way in terms of where the strategy is. But I agree, it hasn't actually been put. ECAN is to investigate, like could have been a resolution as well, that we're to investigate. And I like the words in clause 5 about the aim of providing value for money and the delivery of services and potentially expediting the transition to zero emission vehicles. Like, I like those words, and I think that's already in the paper though, so they're there, because I think that is the strategy. But putting this, I'm happy with those words as well, but I think those linked to clause 5, the words in there, is very important.
Put that amendment to which will become true, I think, to you. So,
look, if I can just make a point that the amendment specifically doesn't refer to, we didn't put the word commercial into the amendment for all the reasons you've described, Vicky. I would point out that all the Jeremy was talking about and talking about what the business space is going to be reflecting are all commercial decisions based around and commerciality will drive this council's ability to deliver the social outcomes that are fond to your heart. So I think we can be pedantic piss about around with around the wording, but I think we were actually pretty much agreeing with each other.
Vote on 6 first, and if it gets through, doesn't it become 2? Yeah.
So we'll vote on the amendment.
Yes, that's right. Otherwise, I would say, aye. So, otherwise, against. There comes another substantive. So now, discussion, any comment about this extended motion? Those all those things.
I definitely support this. Just saying that. I think it's a really good opportunity that's been provided by the change in the funding model and rules around this. I think it's timely that we look at it. So yeah, really support the work that the team are doing, and yeah, just making sure that that clear strategy stated. So yeah, really supportive. So looking forward to the outcomes.
Yeah, very supportive of these resolutions. It's pretty clear that there's an opportunity here for us, and there's a bit of consensus through all the regional authorities across New Zealand that they potentially can seize the opportunity as well. So it's good.
Councillor Clark.
Oh, kia ora. Yes, I support the motion, the amendment, particularly because it gives it a heck of a lot more gravitas for mana, and it actually does reflect. Actually, it sounds like the discussion that has just taken place here about this motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just closed off. It's interesting. I think this is probably one of the more, well, maybe one of the most strategic decisions that this council's making for quite some time on a massive piece of work that we do in this building. This is kind of the start of that. And the reason I wanted the discussion about the question that I asked before is because I actually don't think people outside realise how much fact there is and how much slippage there is in our public transport system, the way it's been operating for forever. I certainly didn't know, and I only kind of clicked on it about 6 months ago, and I was like, "Oh my goodness gracious, it's a completely inefficient system." So I'm excited by looking at options, or for our staff to look at options with an open mind. I don't know what the end outcome will look like, and I don't think we should look at or have an idea about what the end outcome looks like. But I do think that as we as ECAN do have the opportunity to bring the cards in, assemble a deck, and then have something of value to actually say, here's a proposition to our communities of public transport services in our region that works for the people of our region, because we do hear complaints about our public transport system being inefficient, unable to be changed or adapted for the movement of what people want or the changes of society, all those kind of things. And I just think this is a massive opportunity, and I'd really like to sort of get on with it. And thankfully the legislation has been enabling us to do that change that we want to explore. But having it's a complete eye opener when you really dig down and into how public transport systems or services are delivered at the moment. And I'm looking forward to what comes out of this.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Councillor Swift that this is a really big thing for us. Involves a lot of moving parts, not just us. It doesn't just happen in this room. We need to have some really joined up conversations with Hereford Street. No, we have some really joined up conversations during our LTP process. How much position that public transport, PD Futures and PTP and those sorts of things are going to occur. And this could put us on the path of actually holding the baby for quite a while. And so the impost in this building, we still exist under the future local government, who knows, is the fact that we're prepared to do that and you're prepared to do that, which is really, really good. And I'll just say the other point about this and the early discussion that we've been having with how we go through this process. All the heavy lifting is going to be done by PT staff, but they want councillors to be at the forefront of leading this opportunity. And just that really, really little groups, Councillor Davies, Councillor Swiggs, myself, with staff. So this, from this, there's a bit more activity, I guess, around this issue. So if there's no further discussion on that, can I just put that to you? Moved by Councillor Swainson, seconded by Councillor Davies. All those in favour of this, please say aye. All those against? And that's carried. And with that, I'm going to adjourn us for lunch, because I think that the next item, which is the KT item, will go through the 2-hour period. So we'll adjourn and we'll be back here at 1 o'clock. So thank you. All right. Just waiting on a couple of councillors, but we'll get going. We're going to move now to agenda item 8.7, which is the VKT. You're ready. You can launch into that.
Kia ora koutou, through you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this paper is to seek Council's approval to enter into a vehicle kilometres travel initiative funding agreement with Whakatahi. We'll make funding available to the Canterbury Regional Council on behalf of the Greater Christchurch Partnership to develop and deliver a program of activities aimed at reducing private vehicular travel in the Greater Christchurch urban area predominantly. The Christchurch Vehicle Kilometres Travel Reduction Program will assist in meeting agreed emissions reduction targets. It will also assist in providing improved travel choice for the people of Greater Christchurch. Just by way of background, the requirement for VKT, Vehicle Kilometres Travelled Reduction Program, comes from the government's emissions reduction plan, and that has set 4 transport targets, which is approximately equivalent to a 41% reduction in transport emissions by 2035 from 2019 levels. The targets include reducing total kilometres travelled by the light fleet by 20% by 2035, and this improved urban form and providing better travel options in our larger cities, as well as increasing zero emission vehicles to 30% of the light fleet by 2035. As well as reducing emissions from freight transport by 35% by 2035 and reducing the emissions intensity of transport fuel by 10% by 2035. So they're the 4 targets at a national level that all work together to deliver those emissions reductions. The light fleet being one component of that. The detail around KT reduction is further expanded in the government's decarbonising transport action plan. The Ministry of Transport is also in the process of developing national VKT reduction targets that will apply to each urban area required to produce an urban VKT reduction program. And these targets we're anticipating will be engaged on in the coming months by the Ministry of Transport. An urban VKT program ultimately consists of the following, which is a suite of program of actions, including timing, lead agency, and costs, framed around 3 strategic shifts and 7 focus areas, evidence and documented in a form that can be incorporated into a regional land transport plan. So key strategic shifts, the 3, shaping urban form, making shared and active modes more attractive and influencing travel demand and transport choices. And there's a number of key focus areas on those 3 strategic shifts. The process to develop each urban KT reduction program will differ based on the state of the unique governance arrangements, planning processes in each urban area. The key to developing the programs will be the partnering of councils in each urban area with Māori, community and Whakatahi. The 1 councils, which we're part of, the Urban Growth Agenda partnerships currently in place, and associated working groups will be the primary avenue for the program development. So in this instance, through the Greater Christchurch Partnership. Note that the draft government policy statement on land transport will now need to be reviewed with the new government as they determine their program of work. Noting all this, though, it does not change the view, in my opinion, that the need for the council to agree the recommendations that are in this, contained in the paper. So we are prepared for the funding should that proceed. So, Mr. Chairman, recommendations of the paper being council agrees to enter into a funding agreement with Whakatahi to develop and deliver a vehicle kilometres travel reduction program for Greater Christchurch. Authorises the associated expenditure and external funding that was not identified in Council's 23-24 annual plan. I believe there's also a staff amendment being proposed, and I'll need to speak to that, which would be to approve delegation of authority to the Chief Executive to sign all documentation and do all things necessary to give effect to the program following information from Whakatahi as the availability of the funds post-election. Will allow the expenditure to be included in our annual plan, whereas currently it is not identified, and noting that our council will simply act as bank in that regard, that this is money in 100% funded by the Crown on an emergency response fund. So, very much happy to take any questions to that effect. Hopefully that's given a background to councillors on the BKT reduction program.
Thank you, Jesse. So I put that staff recommendation up, third one up there. We won't get to that. So questions, clarification.
Point number 11. Basically, there's no cost to us. Staff time. How much staff time on this?
At the moment, through Mr. Chair, we're just attending the VKT initial program discussion meetings, and we'll be part of a small program of program team, helping provide input into the development of the program. We're not expecting significant staff time, and it's built into our budgets for the Great Christchurch Partnership Work Program.
A follow-up question to Dion's, through Mr. Chair. What is it likely to cost the council should you decide you want to go further? So this is for the deliverables. I have to say I didn't understand a single one of them, but assuming that the program is successful, is there going to be, what's the likelihood that you'll come back to this council and ask for more money to continue to deliver on BE?
Through Mr. Chair, until we actually have a bit more clarity over the program and actually knowing what initiatives might need to be funded in the future. And as I mentioned before, the government, with the new government policy statement on land transport, will provide a direction to where we head with this work as well. Bit of a chicken and egg situation. I can't tell you exactly how much in future years of long-term plans we would need to on certain types of programs. It could range from capital programs to operational programs to advocacy government. There's a range of things that can be included within a KT program. So just sort of changed things. So I couldn't tell you exactly figures at this point in time.
Thanks, Jesse. And it was not a fair question to ask you, but it does concern me that given this this whole program for BT was, as I understand it, initiated by central government. We've applied and been successful in getting some money, but nothing comes for free. So although this particular project is money in, money out, I have nervous apprehension about what engaging in this program is likely to cost the council going down the line. Except you can't answer
that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just a question on point 5. It speaks to KT reduction initiatives aimed to reduce private vehicles to reduce greenhouse gases. I just wonder what the role of EVs is in that situation, given there's a targeted reduction of private vehicles, but we also have EVs and like in the process. So where does that sit in the conversation?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the government's emissions reduction plan, as I said at the start, has a number of 4 targets, and there's one around increasing the zero emissions fleet by 30%, increasing zero emission vehicles to 30% of the light fleet by 2035. But this works in conjunction with reducing the amount of travel that we do by the light fleet as well. So you can pull different levers to different extents. But it's actually where the target has been set. It's actually about reducing or changing the way we our transport system in terms of the light fleets. So some of it will be an increase in zero emissions vehicles, and then there'll be changes to the fleet in terms of fleet as well. And then there'll also be the reduction in the amount of travel that we use light fleet vehicles for. So depending on which levers are pulled harder, it's all about reducing our overall emissions profile.
Thank you for that. It just wasn't clear to me in the way it's written. It's kind of seems very binary and reduction of private vehicle greenhouse gases without, I guess, the further qualification. I won't get pedantic, but I just want that clarity. Thank you.
Sure, could I add as well, just the strategic shift areas as well around shaping our urban form. These are things that contribute to actually reducing our degree of travel. So things relying on public transport active modes as well, they contribute towards reducing emissions.
Yes. Also, sorry, Craig, go.
Got it. Yeah, I'm interested in because what I couldn't pick up in the paper was the specific examples of type of outcomes that we get from this. So the things that you said before to Ian's question about some will be capital, some will be OPEX. Because like, what's an example of some of the things where the result of this work in reality on the ground?
An example for this council is the investment in the public transport futures program, because the increased public transport available to Greater Christchurch will actually have a VAT reduction impact. Mass rapid transit has an impact as well. There are a number of other changes to the special plan that are identified for our priority development areas, so shaping those urban centres, how people travel, where do you have local services, all of those type of things. So there's both public and private investment to this. There's investment in public transport. There's a range of different opportunities, I guess, if you like. Legislative, there's things like road tolling, congestion charging, all of those type of things can contribute towards people traveling less. So what we're after is a 20% reduction from those 2019 levels. So nutshell, driving 20% less will get us. So one per week you decided to not drive a car to work, that will be contributing towards that. So all those different initiatives.
That was sort of my next question. So how does this link to the MRT PT Futures? Because surely we've already done some of that work. That's why we're heading down that track. So does this program help offset the money we've already spent or offset future money we're going to spend? Be helpful if it did. Because that'd be like, what's the point? We've already done it, or do we need more research and stuff done? That's why this money is helpful.
This is actually about developing the program. PT Futures would be an action that comes out of developing that program, which will deliver a particular reduction in BKT. So MRT will certainly be that, and there'll be a range of other actions that will be identified in the program itself. Actually all contribute a certain level of BKT reduction, which moves us towards the target that we need to achieve. There's significant travel behaviour change piece to this, a real social piece to this. A bit like the Road to Zero campaign nationally, about safety roads. Similarly, in this space, we need to have travel behaviour change from a emissions perspective, so that we're actually meeting our climate change goals in that regard.
So this work helps with that extra evidence, bringing that different methods and stuff. Okay. And I have a question. What does TDM business case mean?
That's through Shares Travel Demand Management. So that's the work that we currently do. We have a business work we do with Christchurch and our partners. This is working with schools, travel patterns, workplaces, how to get people to cycle, catch the bus, those type of things.
Yeah, I just wanted to look at attachment schedule 2. It's on page 268 of your agenda, and that the costs, the breakdown of the costs. When I've seen numbers with rounded figures like that, I just go, this just feels like it's been plucked out of thin air. Like, just costs are high from what I've seen and other things that have been done similar. What costs? And I know you might not be able to answer this because this is Waka Taki's proposal, but what are these actually buying that, one, the cost seem high, too, it just feels like it's plucked out of thin air. And is there a way that this could be delivered? The outcomes that are being delivered, could it be done cheaper? I also feel like there's other things that are already doing similar things, and I still feel that this is almost doubling up in some respect.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the figures that are in Schedule 2 are figures that we've developed across the partnership in terms of understanding the types of things that need to be done to gather the evidence, as Councillor Pauling has said, towards developing that program based off our understanding of other programs of work that we've undertaken in the past. They are rounded numbers. They are at a limit. They're not expected to spend the entire 0.365 million. That was what has been agreed as an upper limit with what these need refinement. There is a whole program, more detailed program, and we'll go through procurement processes to obtain the most cost-effective support as identified in that schedule of costs. They are estimates at this point in time to seek an agreement with Waka Kotahi to the overall funding allocation. So they will vary from what's in there. They hopefully they're more refined. The costs may potentially go down.
The other part of that question was, with the existing work programs that are going on all over the place, is this doubling up? Are there ways that this could be delivered for a heck of a lot cheaper than it's being proposed here?
Through Mr. Chair, so in terms of the other work programs, this is a specific work program around reducing people's travel. It does nest with the spatial plan and the Greater Christchurch Transport Plan development. This is a fundamental component of Greater Christchurch Transport Plan. We've previously briefed council that other aspects like freight and safety will also need to be considered as part of a transport plan for Greater Christchurch alongside a funding plan. So that we can have further discussions with government around what is required here in Greater Christchurch. So this is a specific component part of that to achieve our emissions reductions. So this is seen by Waka Kotahi and the Ministry of Transport as an avenue to do that, to achieve those emissions reductions. It's not stuff that we're duplicating in other parts of our business or partnership work at this stage.
Thanks. Just looking at page 267 on the Schedule 1, Waka Kotahi again, they'll form a reference group. Is that likely to be drawn? And now turning to page 251 at the top, 16 and 17. Is it likely to be drawn from primarily a technical transport officers group, or will it also include membership from the partnership? 251, 16 and 17. One describes the partners and the other's the technical officers group. Those are likely to be a bit of both, or?
Yeah, so at the moment, the work program is being developed we've got a project lead at this stage just identified to start doing some program development work. And that'll identify the right expertise as per Schedule 1, building that expertise into the program, and council staff are working as part of that across the partnership. And then we use the existing structures within the Greater Christchurch Partnership. So we've got transport managers groups up through the senior officials, chief executives, and up to the Greater Christchurch Partnership, and combined with the Whanake Kāinga Committee as well.
Okay, thank you, Jess. We've got this updated staff recommendation. I'm going to ask Stephanie to talk 3 on there so that we've got some explanation around that, and it's an opportunity then to talk or to ask questions or clarification of Stephanie's.
Thank you, Chair. 2 points to note. One is, as Resolution 2 notes, this was not authorised in the 23-24 annual plan, and while it is central government funding coming in and then we are dispersing that accordingly, we do not have a resolution permitting that. Therefore, the delegation currently doesn't fit with me. So by virtue of 2, We've put 3 up there that delegation should come through the chief executive, but importantly, upon confirmation from central government post-election. At this stage, we have no confirmation that this funding is actually guaranteed, and therefore it's written in this manner. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions? No question. That can go to Black. Any other discussion on this? Sorry, thanks, Jess. We'll look from her in a second on this. Moved by Councillor Burns, seconded by Councillor Edge. Any discussion? No further.
I'm not going to support it. I don't see the outcomes coming from this. I don't feel comfortable signing off on the amount of money that's going out, even though it's coming out and going out. I just feel like in this current situation and this current climate that I think spending, authorising the type of money without set in stone outcomes isn't financially prudent. And for that reason, I'm just not going to support it.
Hey, Councillor Swiggs, any other? Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I've got reservations about this project. And I've heard past about the fact that we have urban sprawl going on at houses and across the Canterbury region, especially in the Waimaka area, Selwyn district. And yet this project is spending money on trying to reduce vehicle kilometres when, in fact, on one hand, we're expanding the number of kilometres people have to do, and to a degree encouraging that. And on the other hand, we're now trying to stop that. It seems to me we need to have a strategy as to how we should, rationalise what we are encouraging and not encouraging before we start spending money on one of the projects like
this is a national initiative, and this amount of money is to be told to this area for looking at this. Councillor Edge.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have a look at page 254, it describes the intent of this agreement in terms of funding from a government appropriation shift, and really a way of working with Waka Kotahi partnership to develop those initiatives further for our situation here in Canterbury. And I think it would be remiss of us not taking the opportunity to work on this national directive.
Thank you.
This is a bit irrelevant too, but I do share the concerns of Councillor Swiggs about the quantum of the money. For another day, the discussion I would like to know is if we and our public transport want to lead this VKT reduction systems. We've already been briefed around some program areas which are not agreed to yet. Is what could we do? How much would it cost really as a Greater Christchurch partnership? So I'm probably going to support it. It's money in, money out for us, but I do have some sympathy for the concerns on the other side of the table.
So the recommendation has been supported by Councillor Burns and Councillor Edge. So I'll put that to all those in favour of that, please say aye. All those against? Got that? Councillor Swiggs, no, and Councillor East against. Councillor East and Councillor Mackenzie against. There's a wee corner down there, isn't it, really? We will note that. Karakia. Go. You against too, Nook?
Sorry, that was a little broken up. I didn't hear.
The resolution that was in your papers, Paul. It was the 3 councillors voted against it. And just looking for where you sit on whether you're for it or against it.
I'm in for it.
Okay. Thank you. So that's correct. And noted those against. So thank you. So we're going to 8.8. which is cash handling on the Greater Christchurch Metro Network, and Thomas is going to introduce this, supported ably by Stuart. Thomas.
Okay. Paper read, but I'll just a few key points from the report. So as you'll know, Environment Canterbury staff have been working with partners over the past 10 months to on a number of initiatives to improve safety across the network for both drivers and for our customers. Removal of cash handling has been consistently raised by drivers, operators, and the union as key intervention to improve both safety and well-being of drivers. And safety and well-being is an important factor in its own right, but we also consider the benefits of, in terms of network resilience, of having retaining staff in the metro network as being really important. And we didn't have a driver. We had a driver shortage not so long ago. So in terms of making a change in cash handling, see the timing being most appropriate when national ticketing solution is launched. Reason being because it will include a suite of alternative payment options, which we simply don't have currently, the Metro card cash options. So that includes payment by contactless debit card, payment by app, and a new prepaid transit card, which people will be able to top up and purchase through a new retail network, which will have at least 200 locations around Christchurch. And we're working with the project team on ensuring there's adequate coverage there. So there is precedent and case studies of cash removal around the country. Auckland Transport removed cash from the network a couple of years ago, and we removed cash payment from when My Way by Metro was introduced in Timaru. We removed cash payment as an option there. To clarify that we still do have cash top-ups on the My Way network because for the Metro cards. But yes, payment by cash was removed with My Way. So on balance, the recommendation is to remove cash handling from the Greater Christchurch network. And the reason for that on balance is the national ticketing solution of options, but so that we have confidence that with the customer support and education around that, around launch time, that we'll have a comprehensive program to support people through that transition. And we have, I agree, a very good track record in terms of supporting the community of change and recent route changes and concessions. Thank you.
Okay, this is pretty much a straightforward recommendation, sort of almost binary. Councillor McKenzie.
Well, my question is there any reason why we can't introduce cashless riding on the bus for designated routes immediately?
An option. The key challenges we see are that Metro is the only alternative. That's the one. But also because decision making is really thinking about work. So having exceptions or different rules for different services increase would increase the potential for the friction on the buses with boardings and small complexity. But regarding the transition period, we can definitely look into the weeks leading up to it if there's a way to introduce it more gradually.
If I could be specific, we introduced cashless bus riding on the Littleton bus, whatever number that is, 28, 65, with the specific intent that we were trying to encourage the locals to be able to get on the bus and would for non-locals to get on the bus. Would that have merit? Could you do it, I should say?
we could do it. I suppose the big questions are, what is local in that context? So now that that's the core route, for example, a lot of people will be transferring using that route. One bus may have payment options to the one.
Just adding to that point from Thomas, it is important to emphasise that we run a network service, and so people in our communities transfer between routes. In the case of the Littleton service, transferring from the ferry to the bus and vice versa. The Littleton service is very popular at weekends with members of our community going to Littleton to whether amenities that town offers and ride the ferry. And without the retail network scope that the NTS would offer, our view it would make it difficult for our community as it stands at the moment to engage with those services with cash. Whereas once NTS is in place, as Thomas has articulated, there are a wide range of choices and options to pay with much easier access through the extensive retail network, top up a transit card or buy a transit card.
Got it. Now I think of this. So you've got I think the great solution for people who rely on cash a lot more than others is the fact they can buy a prepaid card. A whole lot bigger network of retailers. So if they get stuck thinking, "Oh, geez, I don't have a transit card," they can quickly go buy one. So I think that helps. If they've got cash, they can go buy one. Can you just? And that's correct, though. That's the most simple way for them to do that. Because I'm assuming they don't have a credit card on. They can't easily register online because they don't have a phone, but they can go and get a prepaid card. That's correct, though. I lost my train of thought on my next question, but I just say, and then the other two ways that you can get it is, like I said, register online, register your credit card to it, and do it. It's a bit of a process, though. How long does that take? Can you do that like in the exchange in 5 minutes?
So there is a registration process, but that's optional. So in the new solution, you will be able to use a credit card without logging in anything. And for the new prepaid transit card, you not have to register that.
But if you want to get, if you're a local in particular, and you want to get the concessions, you need, so that registration I'm talking about, that's the third sort of pillar of this. How long does that process take? And what do you need to get registered in the system? Is it a birth certificate? Is it your passport? Is it a real me login or something? Tell me about it.
That decision is yet to be made. As you know, there's compared to the rest of the country, we require more for concessions with birth date based ones. So that decision is yet to be made. It's the reason why we're taking this decision earlier, is we can do the rest of the decision making in the context of this.
There's other two options are there straight up, and they're good. Thank you. Sure, thank you.
I just wanted to add to that conversation. So as you noted, you don't have to register with your credit card or your debit card. So if you don't have a credit card, you'll probably have a debit card. You don't have to register to use that. The concession side of things, where there are national concessions such as Community Services Card and Supergold, you will engage with national verification processes, which are already in place in Auckland, in fact, and in here for Community Service Cards are relatively quick. One of the decisions that Council need to make as part of the year's decision process that Thomas talked about is what level of validation Council will require for concessions such as under 25s, for example. At the moment, we require a proof of age to access that concession. And that's because there are audit expectations and avoidance expectations. Ultimately, that is a decision for council to make. Council choose that process is too burdensome for our community and they're prepared to carry a risk from fraud, then we wouldn't have to do that. Ultimately, we'll bring those decisions to council. There are choices
Thank you. Thanks very much, Thomas and Stuart. Question is, how do the drivers feel about integrating the removal of cash at the same time as a national ticket solution? I mean, I support, but it would be interesting to see how the response.
Our engagement with operators to date, they are quite accepting of the reality that our community needs to be able to pay to use the service. And they recognise and agree that at the moment there really isn't any other alternatives for our community to do that. So aligning it with NTS makes logical and practical sense. Also, it makes sense to our operators and driver cohorts from a community engagement and transition perspective. As Thomas said, if we were to remove cash today, there's a very high likelihood that the occurrence of friction with the driver will increase, which ultimately increases the risk of safety issues, which is what we're trying to avoid.
Okay, thank you. Any further clarification from Dion?
Thank you. You're very welcome. It occurred to me over the weekend, I was having a couple of conversations with some of our homeless community out and about at an event, and just popped into my brain, and obviously they use cash. They don't have cars, they very rarely will have ID. When we go to the NTS and have this, if this decision goes through, can we make sure that we engage city mission, work and income and those kind of places as well, to work with their social work to help engage with those members of the community who will have to change the way that they use, well, they access our system. It's just something that occurred to me over the weekend. So that would be, if that can happen, it would make me a lot more comfortable.
Yes, we can absolutely add them to the stakeholder group, the very comprehensive stakeholder group that we've got. So we'll add those to the list.
If I can move us on to that recommendation there. For someone to move that. I think the second for that.
No. Yo! Yes.
Yeah. Is that you, Paul? Is that you seconding that, Paul?
1 second. What?
Yeah. No. Okay.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Sorry, I thought you were talking, but you weren't. Sorry, apologies.
It's okay. The dog got in my face, and I thought I was going to get a.
I hate it when that happens. It was. Can you just trust me a little bit, maybe? Yes, Mike's. Make to get back on track. Seconded by Councillor Sunkel. So that is any good discussion on this issue? Okay, I'll put it to you.
I have been always, but concerned about like especially the statement that Dion made that it will impact some people. But I think overwhelmingly it is a good decision to make. It's timely that we'll probably go down this track. I'm sort of supported by the methods that we talked about earlier, that I think it is going to be easy enough. And I think Dion's point is really good, that there can be a little bit of work done so that they know how to access the prepaid cards relatively easy through social works and stuff. I think that'll really help. So yeah, I'm supportive of it. Thank you.
Everyone happy? Good. So there, moved by Councillor Kai, seconded by Councillor Sunk. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, that's carried. So thank you very much for the discussion. Thank you. And thank you, Stuart. So we're going to 8.9. 8.9. Climate action piece. So, Mel, welcome, Victoria, to come to introduce this item. So when you're ready, Victoria, if you take off, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to approve our submission for the inquiry into climate adaptation. I will take the papers read and just use this short time to draw your attention to a couple of points around the inquiry process itself. Firstly, the submission, as I said, is for the Environmental Select Committee's inquiry into climate adaptation. Their full terms of reference is included in the paper. Broadly, they're looking to gather evidence to support the development of policy options for a future climate adaptation legislation, the bill of which is still expected for next year. The Environment Country's submission has been developed based on the series of discussions and workshops with the councillors and also staff advice. These were very broad conversations, and while the submission is drawn from those points and it is very wide-ranging, it is not exhaustive. Given the time constraints, we chose to focus our submission on those high-level roles and responsibilities of the Regional Council. But we know that there will be time for more in-depth conversations in the near future to really drill down and shape what the creation of an adaptation system that works for Canterbury, its communities, like. And then finally, just regarding the timeframe, regardless of the timeframes of legislation that is developed, the urgencies and realities of climate change risk in the region mean that some climate adaptation planning and implementation cannot wait for legislation to be developed. Know that our states and our communities are already conducting and leading climate adaptation planning processes, and we continue to support them and ensure that their work will continue while legislation is developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Great.
Hey, well, thanks so much, and I enjoyed our workshop we had on this to help in this process. I just had a question about you note that the Mayoral Forum and through Naito submission that we support that. Can you just give us like an overview? So was there broad agreement between all those three submissions, ours and there too, or was there areas that there was some disagreement?
There was very broad agreement across all three of those submissions. I guess the overarch, I wouldn't want to speak specifically for them, but the overarching view was that the issues paper MFE have put out, which was included as part of the workshop material, captures correct issues, that it captures what there are, and that the issues really draw down to those role responsibilities and funding, and also just making sure that, again, that the ongoing processes, particularly for the TAs and for RUNO that are already engaging in adaptation at that more local level, that this process works for them and supports their ongoing process.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Councillor East.
At our last consideration of this document, I raised a couple of points, one around the somewhat emotive use of the word retreat, and I'm happy to see that I think in section 18 there was a good attempt to defuse that sort of somewhat emotive language and such about relocation in some areas. So I'm very happy that got included in the draft. I also talked about the recognition of changing of science and the fact that currently our planning appears to be based on RPC 8.5 or 8.5 plus. comment that it appears internationally that scenario is being viewed somewhat unlikely. So I was a little disappointed that we didn't make any reference to changing the science and recognition of improvements to the way we approach, or up or down. And so I proposed an amendment to section 37 of the paper, where after the words technical aspects of risk assessment, I'm suggesting that we put in recognising and assimilating changes in climate change science and RBC scenarios, and following on for the rest of that paragraph. I just felt the need to make a statement that science is always being challenged, and that we need to be open to looking at changes in climate change science and RPC scenarios, and I acknowledge it go the other way. But it just, I feel, just to be included. So I propose that amendment to section 37, and I'd be happy to support the submission if that was included. Thank you.
Let me just straighten this up. You're wanting to make an amendment to the document? To the document. Is it voice for me, somebody? Is this technical or substantive? Yeah. I mean, my way of, sorry, someone to speak this. Tim, did you want to speak? Let's handle this first. Let me handle this first. Thanks for your advice, Tim.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Look, I think as it's written there, I don't think it is a major change. All science is ready to adapt and take on new information, and that's what we would, we do that part of the scientific method. What I would just say is that the scenarios that have been used are the same scenarios that have been used in risk assessment work that we've done. The evidence that we have seen as a group suggests that those scenarios are still appropriate, and as staff we consider that they are appropriate. But I think I certainly think what's written up there, the assimilating change in climate change science and the scenarios make sense, because it will do that anyway.
I'm going to ask some advice from staff, so that's been given, so thank you.
I have sympathy for the council amendments, given that science does change. If I was reading AR 6 2021 and some of the chapters around global warming potential versus actual temperature and the like, science does move and change. So while I don't have a strong position, I'm comfortable with something that notes the science does change and it's not in a binary space.
Thank you. Are you happy with the way it's written there, David? The way I've proposed, or the current, or the way it was? Yeah, I'm happy with that. I wrote them.
I think proposed amendments unnecessary. For me, we have to be upfront about the danger that we're in terms of climate change. And obviously things are changing, but I mean, as I said this morning, it's reported, I'm not sure the science team that did this, but we're in uncharted territory in terms of where we are sitting now with climate change. And I don't think that we should give any indication that we're potentially sitting on the fence this issue. I mean, it's a bit like this issue of changing the word retreat to what have we got now? Relocation. I think it was an unnecessary word. It changes well. The word retreat is throughout national documents, those sort of things. So, no, for me, I just don't think it's necessary.
What do you think?
I was going to suggest that you have a mover and seconder for the amendment, and then put it to the vote. And let people speak and put it to
Let's move to an amendment. I don't think it's, anyway, that's personal opinion. Got someone that will move that, obviously Councillor Fisher will move that. Good for that, Councillor Sunkel. Any discussion now? We have on that.
Yeah, I just say I think it's a great submission, and I certainly support the point about ensuring that environmental outcomes are considered in any sort of adaptation. I think Councillor East's points, actually, you know, my view of the way science is turning out is that actually it's likely to get much worse, much faster than what has been sort of the consensus view has formed, and we're seeing plenty coming out along those lines in terms of what's being measured. So I'm comfortable with the ruling up there, and I think really it points to this supporting the dynamic adaptation policy pathways, because that does provide the mechanism to respond either faster or slower depending on how things play out. So it doesn't really matter what we think around the table. It's you know, keeping flexibility. Thank you.
Just on the text in red, recognising and assimilated changes in climate change science could not be capitalised, and then it should be RCP, RPC, RCP. Yes, and climate change doesn't need to be capitalised. Then that's, yeah. Thank you.
So accepting a substituted motion, are we going to vote on the amendment?
What we're doing, I've been asked by Councillor Pauling to seek support to change this. It doesn't substantially change what's said. I've been advised by a head of science and a chief executive.
I'm not clear whether that's a substitute procedurally. I'm still not clear whether it's a substituted motion.
It's not a motion.
But on the screen, it's like a motion. That's all I'm just saying. On the screen. Yeah.
Yeah. But our resolutions on page 276, there's now an alteration. Is that a substituted motion, or are we going to vote on an amendment?
Ask Councillor Pauling the question because he asked me to put this, and which I'm doing.
And I only did that because on the screen it looks like an amendment to the one. So with an amendment, just put it.
That's what I was trying to do. And I did a great debate on this about the merits of climate change, not climate change. That's my point. We had discussion because we haven't got a get this sorted, and then we can have some discussion if we want to. You're unhappy with that it's an amendment to the document. You weren't happy with that? All right. Now so.
So apologies for speaking too soon. I'd like to say what I said before, but just put it here. That's enough. Thanks.
sorry, Tim's given. On whether we change the wording in the document to amend it to what it is on the screen. Does everyone understand? A big
Not asking for an amendment to the motions that we have. I'm asking for that document to be altered as such.
So just get clarification in your own minds before you actually put this to again, that you're happy with what's going on here. John Sankle's there. You can.
I just think it's not necessary changes because it sort of said that anyway. It just feels like repetition. So I don't support the changes.
Sorry, change the words in the document. It says 37. Does anyone have? Put your hand up if you support that. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So all those against, put your hand up. Noted.
Against.
And Paul, you're against. Noted. So there we are. So 37 will change to this, which reflects what Councillor Rees has brought to us. So that can disappear anytime you like. It changes the document, it doesn't change the recommendation. So the recommendation, which is on page 276, states approves the Canterbury Regional Council Environment Canterbury submission, the inquiry into climate change adaptation, attachment 8.9. Delegates the Chief Executive amendment of any minor clerical errors. The sessions prior to submitting the Environment Committee. Have a mover for that, please. Councillor Sankle, seconded by Councillor Pauling. Okay, so is there any discussion now about this? Yes, Greg.
Yeah, thanks very much for the work. I just want to reiterate what Councillor Pauling said before. I really enjoyed the fact that we had the opportunity to workshop, and I thought all the scenarios and bits and pieces are very good. I just also want to throw it in there. Let's not forget also that this council has already declared a climate emergency. So anyway, kia ora.
Right, we need to add a second more than what we have. So I'll put that to moved by Councillor Sankle, seconded by Councillor Pauling. All those in favour, please say aye. All those, that's carried. Thank you. So we go to 8.10, 8.10, which is sustainable content delivery and public transport. And I see Judith will delay this, so I don't know where the hell we are with this now. She said,
Director.
Steve, do you want to come up and introduce this? And I think we'll get Stuart, the PT part of this, we'll get you to speak to that. Is that Giles? Got two big boys up. All right, first, Steve. Oh, Judith, she is.
Through you, Chair, I'll just introduce. So the purpose of this paper is to increase funding in this financial year for our sustainable contents delivery and also for PT. It's essentially to address the delivery of some urgent things we need to do there to get back on track. And it's for staff, basically. You will all recall that, or most of you will recall, this was endorsed by the Audit, Finance and Risk Committee. And there was questions at that committee about not just the capacity piece, which this will do, which will enable us to, in the consenting area, get to a point in about a year's time where we've cleared our backlog and be in a position to be progressing consents that are coming in the door in a timely way and meeting statutory timeframes, but to also talk about how we're improving our efficiency around that. There is work underway to do that as well. And Judith will talk more in detail about those things in a moment. PT Pete's Giles is here to talk about those. I'll let him for his read. I won't go into any more details in terms of setting the context. But Judith, would you like to talk a little bit about the Te Hapai ore project we have underway, which we call ERD, which is looking at the efficiency and productivity pieces around consents, noting that this paper is not about that. This year is about getting more people progress backlog for our consents.
Kia ora. The other bit around more people is also recognising, because of the backlog and the need to give rebates for when we don't meet statutory timeframes, there is a reduced revenue then forecast, which makes up that amount. Look, there's been a range of work underway at the moment, which is utilising the Te Hapai change methodology to explore what could we be doing differently. Just putting more people and more money in something isn't necessarily going to lead to a sustainable outcome. So we're really been looking at a range of initiatives to see how we can streamline processes, all those points along the process where there's either delays in time or add costs or add steps where our consent planners are taken away from the core work of the consent and processing it and doing administrative tasks. All of these things just reflect a long history of piecemeal changes in the consenting process system as new legislation, new software, new systems, steps have come into place. So we've taken this opportunity to step right back to look at what could we be doing differently and where can we really streamline. So that's looked at things like standardising guidance for consent material and making sure it's all easy for staff to find so they can get to the info they need to inform the processing of that consent quickly and seamlessly. Looking at where we can remove duplicating steps, and one of those that we use is because we put information on the website, we have a process of redacting personal information. How can we do that in a much quicker way? And each time we do that, that comes at a cost. So perhaps save money along the way. The staff have been looked at realignment to make sure the team's set up to function in a more effective way, and that comes into place actually on Monday. And that's looking at the work in relation to complexity as well. So we have those old consents that we're processing, and they are often extremely complex consents, which is why they've taken a while, and they've appeared in a changing environment, national regulation in front of that. We have still consents coming in the door every day. So how can we set up for better quality consents coming in and accepting whether to be accepted, not accepted them, so that when they do come in, we can move them through the system. In the past, that's not something we've done very well. We've tried to work too much with the applicant around making the outcomes work. So there's some things we've been doing. It's also about engaging with consultants who are involved in supporting consent applicants, but also with other how we access expert advice in-house and outside, including our environmental entities, around how we get the access to that advice as well. So all of these aspects have been at play under the way at the same time before coming to you with this aspect. But they're all feeding into the goal of meeting our target, the level of service of 95% of consents processed within the statutory timeframe by December 2024. That's the goal. The other goal we have is a lift in our current level of efficiency, which is at below 50%, up to 65% as an industry target. And all of those things I mentioned before are feeding into that efficiency gain. I just want to give you the other one about progress is also that we're getting lodgements, the amount of consent applications lodged, the decisions going out the door is actually at a ratio of 1 or more. So we've got that balance of what's coming in and going out. Now, we've not solved all of this sooner. If we had, we couldn't be here asking this request. But we have made some progress, and I just wanted to give you a sense of we are making progress. So back in July, we had a ratio of consent applications lodged going to decision of 0.62. Rate of play last week, that's now sitting at 0.92. So there still is more consent coming in than decisions being made, but we've made a significant uplift. We've had some additional staff come on board, and some of those staff we've managed to secure are experienced, which is a bonus. But we do know that as we bring cohorts of new staff, as would be the case with this proposal, there is a little bit of dip in productivity as our experienced staff are brought on to train the new ones in our systems and processes. Just guess, recognise as that, but we do want to get to a place where we're retaining the staff we have, and we're in our capability and capacity, as well as always looking for those improved systems and ability to report on progress. Other aspect is that as we move through and progress those old consents, we will be in a position of discounting less, so therefore our revenue should be going up as well. So there's a little bit of where we are, but there's light in the tunnel that we can see.
Do you want to take both these things all together, or we just council's inquiries?
Look, it's your call, Chair. It might be easy to do consents first.
Yeah. So looking for questions of any clarifications from Stephen or Judith, John, then Claire, and then
you answered the question I asked, and I guess I had the business of throwing money and doing the same thing, more money and the same outcome. So I am pleased that you have provided that system process information that will hopefully take us to where we need to be. So thank you for that.
Thank you, through you. My question relates more to what happens to full-time employees once we get that over one, because we've the system changes and the process changes you're going to obviously be still in place and hopefully being continually refined and improving. Then I'm just wondering, is there a natural attrition coming along, or what's the there? Because otherwise we could be employing a lot of people for a short period of time and then having.
So through the years, good question. But that's part of the long-term plan conversations as well, which you're talking about, and this has been factored into that. I suppose one point which the paper does cover off, but very light, in terms of our capacity in the consenting area, just to process the number of consents that we've got coming at us, particularly not just the number we've got today, but the number over the next 10 years. We are going to need more people. If you look at ourselves in terms of benchmarking ourselves against other places, we've had we've been a little bit light in this area. But in terms of how we manage the exact numbers that we need, so that the request is for up to $3.5 million and another 28 people essentially. And the team will be thinking about exactly how many they need between now and the end of the financial year.
Just really interested to see this. I'm interested, how do you measure efficiency? What does that mean? Was it look like in terms of difference between below 50% and then? So I'm just curious, in this sort of context, how do you measure efficiency? What's that measuring in real terms?
So there's a number of factors in that. The bit of paper I needed is behind me on the chair, but that's okay. But a lot of this relies on the amount of time the staff is spending on a consent. So how and the time it takes through to process it.
Yeah, it's productive time. So benchmark for the industry 65%, and we're at, what are we at? 50, I think, right now.
Just under.
Yeah.
What's happening with the other 50% time? Like how's
annual leave, sick leave, other things that are not associated with processing that particular consent that you can charge the consent holder. Tasks, that sorts of things.
I guess overlaying this is the principle of fair and reasonable charge on. So there are times where staff are undertaking tasks to complete a process because of how we've got it that isn't considered fair, reasonable to charge on.
Really, part why I asked that is so having worked for consultancies, like you typically are looking to be charging out very much higher percentage than 5%, and I'm thinking how whether there's something in how whether we're too careful about what we charge for or not, because that's that is cost. We are paying staff for that period, that full 100% of the time, and just seems interesting because for the private sector that you wouldn't get even 65% charge per hour. You're looking at penny for 100. So it'd be interesting to know what's the difference, because they will also have admin and various other things that people are doing. But I appreciate that if we're more streamlined and you're demonstrating it produces something that is achieves an outcome in a more, then hopefully we head towards even greater than 65%. Thank you.
Yeah, my question really following on from Claire's, I had the same question, but the main thing is, if we got a from where we're at now, and you're going to upskill the organisation to be able to handle the level of consents. One is how did it not get picked up earlier when you're looking around the councils around the country? And do we have are we going to have systems in place where this won't happen again, so that we don't end up in the situation that we're in at the moment?
So one of the reasons for tracking things like the application coming in through the decision ratio is about, are we building up or are we clearing? So that's an early indicator of, is there, have we got the resourcing right? So that's that part. I'm just trying to think, what was the first question again? Sorry.
Once we get to the level that we're going to get to, are we not going to find ourselves in this situation again? And what sort of get to that situation in the first place? And are we going to find ourselves in the situation again? Because I don't want to happen, 2 years down the track and all of a sudden, I look at the spike of consents coming up. There's a massive amount of consents coming up. So we're going to find ourselves in the situation again.
So part of the sustainable consents delivery plan is actually then looking at the case of the old consents we have, but also preparing for what is ahead of us. So the staff have done a lot of work looking at both of those aspects, understanding the consents that haven't progressed to date, but also understanding the nature of those consents we expect to come in. So that's into size, for example, what we will need. I think that some part of the paper it does refer to when this became highlighted, the one last year. I think we started to see, but some of this, was I guess one of the oldest consents at the moment that's in play is I think 2004. The 2002 we finally moved on the other day. So so there are things.
Question, Dion, I think just background on that, we talked about the legacy stuff that we're dealing with, and I just quickly just a comment from Stephanie, because I think she summarizes these things better than we would. But this is like a process where things have got stacked on things on things on things. So I don't know if you've got a comment for clarity.
I think they're really important questions. Thank you, Councillor Twiggs. I think there are a few things here. One is that over the last decade, this council has put in place the most sophisticated freshwater plans in the country. And in doing so, we have created a system where consenting process is perhaps more complex than in other parts of the country. We knew at the end of that process that we would have a significant number of consents, and we knew that based on the number of staff we had, it would be very tight to maintain the requirements statutorily. However, in that time frame, we've also not attended to a number of legacy issues. Those are the older consents, quite complicated consents, both in terms of when things expired, the role of water allocation, and the like. Since then, and during this period of time, we have also had an unprecedented amount of change from central government with regard to requirements on us. Under the Essential Fresh Water Package, there were multiple requirements, not just under the NPSFM, which allows us time for change, but indeed NESs, which require us overnight to implement. In addition to that, councillors will be well aware that we have the outstanding Awa decision in front of us, the Supreme Court. So all of those, the legacy, the complex freshwater planning process, and the realities around the current state of central government demand upon us mean that we are under-resourced. In addition, then, is the other part, which we've been calling to HAP.io, which is effectively a review of the way we do things, that we don't end up in a situation again. And in doing that, we've identified a number of things. And I'll just raise a few of them. The way that we invoice, the way that we utilize spreadsheets, the cutting and pasting, and the likelihood of increased human error. The need to have immediate contact with science, for instance, in order for a consent officer to be able to make a decision rather than waiting for a science staff member to respond. The ability to have a more seamless relationship with each of our Papatipuranga entities and clarity so that decisions can be made easily and forthcoming. Those are just a handful of identified areas that we have to lift. Fixing each of those lifts the productivity piece. So Councillor Southworth, in order for those staff not to have to spend a half hour chasing a scientist, for instance, that gets you lift your productivity by having them at the other end of the phone, and those things can be done quickly. There is also, lastly, a comment that's important here, and that is that consent holders need to understand that under the current legislation and the current NPSFM, it does mean that we have to say no at the start of our consent processing when they don't meet the application requirements. And that is where there is a tension between consent holders and this organization as a regulator. We're seeking to attend to all of those. Lastly, I will comment on Councillor Mackay's question. It is in the LTP, and the current mood is that roughly this number of FTE is required, given that we are the region with the largest amount of fresh water, with the largest number of consents by 3 times compared to the rest of the country, and by virtue of the complexity. The question remains, with productivity enhancement, could we reduce that? And certainly you should be asking us that question, and we should be answering you, which is why we want to put those metrics to you on a regular basis. And we know that this is fundamentally our social license to operate. If we do not fix this, there are other issues that our community rightly has of us. Chair, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. So we've got David, Genevieve, and Nick.
Thank you, Stephanie. Touched on the AWA decision a moment ago. My question really was the outcome of that decision, either favourably or unfavourably for us. How will it impact on our ability to improve our consenting position?
Reaction to that question is that it'll make clear things that can either proceed to a decision and whether or not the decision has to be notified or it's a decline. We can decline or a notification. So I think there's some sitting there waiting to progress because of that decision. So it will get those moving, but it would also probably inform the nature of some of the consents also yet to come in.
So enable us to actually clear a lot of consents reasonably quickly?
I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure the exact number that's around that particular issue, so I don't know a quantum, I'm afraid. Councillor, thank you for the question. Without seeking to predetermine a court which is holding this, there are 2 pathways. One is they uphold our current way of doing things, which is effectively our plan. And should that be the case, then the consents go through by virtue of that. If the decision is upheld, i.e. our plan is not correct, then we will very likely have to do a plan change in order to meet those requirements. In terms of the number of consents, I think they're roughly around 40 to 60 in there. Rather than quoting me, I will bring that back to council and make sure that it's updated and in the public environment. I know that Aurora, our manager, has talked about that, but I might have the wrong figure in my mind.
Stephanie, you stole a bit of my thunder from your previous comments, but just regarding comments made by Aurora recently in a just a chat about the grouping of consents, or the potential grouping of consents to try, or like consents to push them through. I'm just wondering if that has been implemented at all, and if so, does it come with like increase in risk, I guess, to the council or the organisation for pushing through as a group as opposed to, yeah.
I don't think it comes with any risk at all. What it does is it means that, so that's picking up on some of the efficiency opportunities around streamlining the way that we deal with consents. So it's not one size fits all for every single consent that comes in the door, because a whole lot of them that would be really simple, go through our system quickly. And that's how the group has now been structured. So they deal with it like that. Yeah, I don't think that it increases the risk at all. It probably does the complete opposite, actually.
Basically, all my questions have been answered for Stephanie, but I guess I get concerned about throwing people and money at problems. It's a very easy thing to do when you're in business, and that going forward. And I guess the other thing I have is about more standardisation and avoiding duplication, because recently I had 4 separate consents on one road. One was $7,000, one was $27,000. So how does that work? You know, so I think we need to get a bit smarter in that space. It's not a question, it's more a comment. And how do you reduce the risk? Yeah.
So one of the things that we are doing, I take as a question, is looking at how do we create a much simpler approach to invoice. So we have done more simple consents, standardised consents. We would have a standardised charging mechanism, clearly to develop that and implement it. And then for the more complex ones, we then have to have a more bespoke. But you should see greater consistency. You should see greater transparency in terms of how we communicate with the consent applicant in terms of what they're going to be charged and when they're going to be charged it.
Comment those 4 different consents, 4 different people, so that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Stephanie referred to PS fresh water, and she talked about the hour decision. In both cases, there will be a lot of consents that will be either rejected or not processed because of those 2 pieces of pending rules and existing rules. Can we tell consent applicants straight up when their consent is returned, this is the reason, so that they understand the reasons for it, as opposed to saying your consent hasn't met the threshold, you know, blah, 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 blah. Be a bit more specific about telling them why their consent has been not so much rejected, but not in the first place. Can we do that? Is it possible, or is it?
Absolutely. That's normal practice. If it's not, it should be.
Because I mean, if we are doing that, we're not doing it clearly enough, because people don't seem to understand it, and they come to me and they say, we've got an issue, and I through, and they sort of react. So it would be quite nice if we can be very clear and unequivocal in those explanations.
Look, that's what I'm used to. So, yep.
Thank you. Look, I think we'll just save yourself up as that the Giles will, if you can through that public transport reserves.
Very briefly, Chair. So council will be aware that public transport team has a enormous work programme with significant demands placed upon it in terms of the work that needs to be done. That's been exacerbated by us being the first implementer of the national ticketing solution, which has required us quite rightly to second a number of people to the public transport team work full time on the national ticketing solution. So we're looking to, while we debate and discuss with council the long-term plan, we are looking to use the current PT reserves to supplement the capacity and capability in the existing team to allow us to progress some of the key pieces of work over the next few months toward the end of the financial year, take some pressure off what is a pretty stretched and, if I dare say, overworked team at the moment, given the amount of work that it's got on.
Thank you for that. I would note for both of these items are in our top 3 things that we need to be concentrating on, business as usual. The other one is flood resilience. So have the consenting risk around consenting. We've talked about that for a long time. It's good to know that we're getting progress on that. And I must say the water thing a wee bit calm from where I sit anyway, what they were, say, 4 or 5 months ago. I'm not wrong on that. And I think the PT thing is actually well stated. The NTS is something that needs to be delivered. And we can't risk that timing on that. We've got another whole lot of stuff hanging on that. So I think these are reasonable things. Any more clarity needed from either Stephen, Giles, or Judith? If not, we'll thank you for that, and we'll put the resolution up, and then we get an opportunity to talk about it if we need to talk about it. So there we are. So that's the resolution there, 1, 2, and 3. I won't go through those. They've been in front of you. Can we move it for that, please? Thank you, Greg. And a second, thank you, David. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm supportive of these resolutions. It's pretty clear, both in terms of the consent and the PT, that we need to spend some money to actually get work done. And it's very clear when you look at risks associated with not doing this is quite high in terms of our public reputation, but also it puts us back on the back step of moving forward.
Thank you. Anything else? I'll go to you, Greg. You, the mover. Do you say anything? No. Second, do you want to say anything?
I think just with the first one, consenting is a very public space for us. The more we can do to improve our position and our consenting position, the better. Because regrettably at the moment, I don't think we have a great public persona in the area. So yeah, very supportive and moving forward there.
Okay, look, thank you very much, Stephen, Judith, for this. It's good to know the update where the updates are, and also just the PT thing. And really thank you also for the comment. I guess it was nice from my point of view to see that comment as the public open. So some visibility around the stickiness. Thank you for that. Yeah, it was well done. All right, I'm going to put that into. So all those in favour, please say aye. All those against. That's carried. So thank you very much for that. Great, good result, and good luck. When we get to 1, can we have a party when we get to 1? Right, 8.1, Giles, for you. This is the independent member recruitment. Thank
you, Chair. The paper as read. The audit committee currently has 2 independent members on it. One of them, his term is due to finish the end of this year. So the proposal is that we go to market for a replacement. And obviously we need council approval before we commence that process, noting that the terms of reference require us to have at least 1 independent. We do currently have, even after Graham Naylor has finished his, we still do have 1.
questions around this?
Is it appropriate that he get like able to reinstate him, or do we have to go to market as such? Because to vote him in earlier is just like continuing. Would
We appointed Graham McGlynn earlier this year. Graham Miller's term finishes. Conversations with the chair of AFRC, deputy chair, and chief executive indicated that our preference would be to have somebody who was locally based. Graham Miller is currently resident in Taronga. That's not to say that we couldn't continue with that, but it is quite an expensive arrangement to fly him down. Graham McGlynn is based in Canterbury, so it's one of the considerations. Also ensuring that we have the opportunity to test the markets to get that blend of skills between the two independents, to blend that technical, financial, and accounting expertise with strategic management, risk management. Not to say that the two Grahams don't have those capabilities, but I think the view was that we should test the market. Obviously, if Graham chooses to apply and he comes out as the preferred candidate, then that will be a recommendation back to council to appoint.
Look, I'm really supportive of the fact that we are going to market from the point of view that I think there is a sameness about the two people that we have at the moment, and we need, from my personal opinion, so we need to be looking at someone with more of a financing forward-looking skills. We've got a lot of that stuff ahead of us, and so that's my personal opinion. I don't know if you're going to put on that, Grant, but
no opinion other than I think it's good to market. We went to market last time, and Graham McGlynn came back on the.
And just from my perspective, we're going to market, but I don't say that we would presume to have. We have an idea of what we want, but we're not being specific and absolute. I think in fairness to the process and any particular applicant, we want the blend, and that's all we're saying. Whether whatever. Thank you.
Straightforward. We're going to do this. 8.1.1. Sorry.
We move to that, putting the motion. Can we carry on and questions of clarity or direct? Not necessarily, but I would like to get some clarity around how the panel was decided, whether no shadow an amendment to that particular one. So I'm not sure whether that's something that you can answer or something staff.
I mean, should the vice chair of finance and risk be here? I'm not sure. I don't think it makes a big difference. I thought if finance and risk vice chair wants to be there, he can say he wants to be there. We can change that. On that's my opinion. I don't know if you've got an issue with any of that, John. So have you got an issue with any of that? That 3 would be good. So that's what we did.
Yeah, if going through this recruitment process and get the candidates on the table, like I totally hear that suggestion of having like a breadth of experience and skills being brought to the table, and I think that makes sense. But if when the candidates come through, there is a chance that there's a sort of difference between the member that we have and remaining, is there an opportunity to say actually we'll go back out to the market, or actually we'll stick with one rather than spending money? That's still, it's not a guarantee we'll go to one or whoever applies in this process.
So to pick up on both questions, it's a recruitment process. If we don't find a suitable candidate for whatever reason, then there's no requirement to appoint. We could continue with an additional recruitment process or a more targeted means of recruitment. In relation to the panel, the previous panel for Graham McGlynn was previous chair of audit committee, the new chair of audit committee, supported by myself. In speaking to Peter as the chair of council and an ex officio member of the committee wanted to be on the panel at the time. We did. I'm making a recommendation that it stayed at 3. But if John wanted to join us, then I have absolutely no objection.
Jumping up and down, we'll add the Vice Chairman of Finance and Risk.
So, yeah, I was just going to say, I can't see why you'd need to increase to 3. You may as well throw, we've no diversity in there, we have no gender breakdown, I mean, at the end of the day, you can pick whatever. You've got the chair, you've got the audit, you've got the director, you've got, I don't see there's any reason to change from 3.
We're going to leave it at 3, but thank you, Claire, for bringing that up. There's resolution on the, someone would like to move that. Seconded by Gunn. The discussion on that. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against. That is carried. 8.1.2, we're just going to note that that report is there. The issues that are raised in there can change at any time in the next month. So I'm not going to go into that. So I'll put that motion. We received the chair's report. Thank you, Joe. Any further discussion on that? There being none, I'll put that to you. All those in favour, please say aye. All those, that's carried. We do need a motion to move into Public Excluded. Councillor Blink. So we'll take a couple of minutes and then we'll come and do that because we'll make sure that the Public Excluded people are in the right place.